Phoenix Nights. Chapter 1024. The Peak of Divine Favor. Rich power of faith, vast square, and magnificent angel statues. Looking at the familiar scenery, Chenrui inevitably felt a little emotional. Last time he came here, he used the identity of Paul's follower, and he even became a holy light guardian knight under false pretenses. In addition to the snow dowlet flower that saved Inni, he also gained one of the most important people in his life, Little Phoenix Duo. Your Holiness Arthur? Eudora's voice brought Chenrui back to reality. Your Holiness Eudora. Chenrui showed an apologetic look. I was shocked by the power released by the statue of Lord Raphael just now, and I forgot myself for a moment. Please forgive my rudeness. The glory of Lord Raphael shines on the entire peak of divine favor, and you can feel the powerful blessing that is close to the power of God everywhere. Hearing the name of Raphael, Eudora did not dare to neglect. Your Holiness, you don't have to be so formal. You are the holy son appointed by Lord Raphael, and you also have an unimaginable ancient inheritance. It is only a matter of time before you become the next pope. In the future, the light of the peak of divine favor will also be more and more brilliant because of your holiness. Your Holiness Eudora is flattering me. Please give me more advice in the future. Chenrui slightly bowed to Eudora, which was already a very formal etiquette. Although there was no official conferment, the high level of the church knew that Arthur was favored by the supreme angel Raphael, and he could even enter the highest forbidden area of the holy mountain of light, the Hall of Light. Not to mention the Holy Sun, even the throne of the Pope was in the bag. In terms of the current actual status, he was definitely not below the two patriarchs Eudora and Pusmer. Your Holiness and I are both from the peak of divine favor, so you don't have to be so polite. Let's go. There seemed to be a slight smile behind the veil of the saintess, revealing a kind of grace and holiness. Eudora was extremely slender. She was taller than Chenrui. She had blue hair and blue eyes. She exuded a kind of ethereal temperament, as if she was independent from the world. When Chenrui saw Eudora for the first time, he had a faint sense of familiarity. Now he finally understood the reason. Because of Tiffany. Eudora's temperament was somewhat similar to Tiffany's. Tiffany had a dual personality. She was not similar to Eudora in the Bloody Empire's trade fair, but the Satan's disciple in the Mountain Sacred. In contrast, Tiffany was more cold and aloof, while the Saintess Eudora was more amiable. People who came into contact with her would involuntarily feel close to her, but they did not dare to have any blasphemous thoughts. Eudora also came to welcome the Saintess's disciple, half-elf Miranda, who had a brief encounter with Chenrui, and some main knights and members of the Holy Blessed Hall. Strangely, he didn't see Tiffany, who he wanted to see the most. Chenrui followed Eudora all the way to the Blessed Palace and sat down in the hall. Eudora introduced the general situation of the entire White Cliff, as well as the personnel and facilities of the Blessed Peak to Chenrui, including some of the procedures and etiquette that should be paid attention to in the coronation ceremony. Although Eudora's tone and attitude always remain humble, it gives people a very comfortable feeling, like a spring breeze. Well, Your Holiness Arthur, this is the basic situation. Eudora stood up gracefully. The biggest reason why Lord Raphael asked you to come here is 2 months. No, it is less than 2 months. To be precise, it is the crowning ceremony in 56 days. The crowning ceremony would be held on this peak, and the specific location was the Cloud Ascension platform. In fact, only the main part of the Cloud Ascension platform's layout has been completed. Just in case, Your Majesty needs to make an attempt first. Your Majesty, please follow me to the Cloud Ascension platform. Okay. Chenrui knew that this was the highlight of the day, so he also stood up. The Cloud Ascension platform was a wide open space. Although it was not as good as the square of the Raphael statue, it was much larger than the snow peak where the snow tree was originally located. Currently, they were busy building a large platform. This platform was obviously used for the crowning ceremony of the crowning ceremony. It was about 2 stories high, but the shape was quite strange. Judging from the scale of the appearance, about 2/3 of the progress had been completed. Eudora walked up the platform step by step with Shinrei. There was a small building similar to an altar on the platform. There were 10 men dressed as knights standing under the building. Your Holiness Arthur, these 10 are the Silver Guardian Knights of our blessed palace. As soon as they heard Eudora's introduction, the 10 knights saluted to Shinrei. Shinrei nodded and asked, Your Holiness Eudora, what should I do? Your Holiness needs to ascend this holy radiance platform and then use the power of the Crown of Thorns' holy blessing to transform these 10 knights into the physique blessed by the power of light. This? Shinrei frowned. Your Holiness Eudora, to be honest, although I can use the power of the Crown of Thorns' holy blessing to transform a normal physique into a light physique, the success rate isn't high. Not to mention 10 knights, even one can't succeed in one go. In God's dictionary, there's no such word as impossible. Eudora smiled indifferently. For the supreme angel who is closest to God, he also has the magical power to turn the impossible into possible. This is the purpose of your visit to the blessed peak today. Shinrei frowned and looked at the holy radiance platform. Could it be that this holy radiance platform? That's right, Your Holiness Arthur, now you go up and stand in the red circle. Then, please fully exert the power of the Crown of Thorns. Shinrei walked up the holy radiance platform according to the words and came to a red circle with a diameter of about 5 meters. A crystal clear crown of thorns appeared on his head. This red circle was actually formed by a complicated ancient rune. After he walked into the red circle, Eudora seemed to activate some special power. Shinrei only felt that the special power was emitted from the red circle and gathered into a string of symbols in the air. These were the handles of the ancient runes. These sentences or phrases were very special. With Shinrei's level, he actually couldn't fully understand the meaning of it. At the moment, he could only quickly remember it in his heart and discuss it with Rala later. Those runes were fleeting and turned into a halo that wrapped Shinrei. Shinrei felt that in an instant, a rich and powerful power of faith poured into his body. It was not only the power of faith, but also a more special power. In his soul, there seemed to be a strange scene. It seemed to be a planet. Half of it was light, and the other half was dark. Between day and night, it was brewing a mysterious and huge breath. This kind of illusion should be triggered by that strange power, but the specific scene varied from person to person. The higher one's level was, the more they could understand the mystery. Shinrei secretly compared it with his Star Kingdom, and he seemed to have a lot of new understanding in the subtleties. However, this understanding didn't last long. Under the stimulation of the Holy Radiance platform's strange power, the light of the Crown of Thorns instantly became bright. Shinrei thought and suppressed his strength to the Demon Emperor level, then he displayed Divine Blessing. A white light shrouded the bodies of the 10 Guardian Knights under the platform. The breath of these 10 knights began to change quickly. The expressions on their faces were a little painful, as if they were undergoing some kind of transformation process. The light of the Crown of Thorns lasted for nearly 5 minutes before it gradually dimmed. The power of the red halo's runes also disappeared, but the light of the 10 Guardian Knights did not disappear. It was as if they were wrapped in a light cocoon, and the specific situation inside couldn't be seen clearly. About half an hour later, the light cocoon gradually solidified, and then it cracked open one by one. The 10 knights' hair color all turned silver white, and their bodies exuded a rather mellow light element power. One of the knights seemed to have become the body of light blessing. That's great. Eudora looked happy. Your Holiness Arthur, you have successfully transformed 10 Guardian Knights. Shinrei breathed a sigh of relief. There was a trace of exhaustion in his eyes, and he slowly walked down the stage. This is thanks to the magical power of this holy radiance platform. If it weren't for it, I definitely wouldn't have succeeded. Your Holiness Arthur is too humble. Your performance was much stronger than I expected. It could even be said to be perfect. You actually managed to fuse with the platform of Holy Radiance's strange power so quickly and successfully transform it in one go. Eudora's eyes fell on the Guardian Knight who was suspected to have the body of light blessing. By the way, My most loyal knight Sandro, the light breath on your body is particularly pure. Later, you will go to the astrology hall of the Star Summit to do a test. If you become the body of light blessing, you will directly be promoted to a holy guardian knight. I will also report to Sir Raphael to let you participate in the next saint candidate selection. Sandro, who was hit by good luck, was overjoyed. He quickly thanked Eudora and Chinray excitedly. After the 10 knights left, Eudora said again, Your Holiness Arthur, you may have discovered that the amplification power of the Holy Radiance platform is closely related to the strength of the owner of the Crown of Thorns. I venture to say that although the 10 knights were successfully transformed just now, if it is 100, I'm afraid Your Holiness' current strength is far from enough. Therefore, Your Holiness, please don't be complacent. You must continue to work hard to cultivate and integrate the power of the ancient civilization to ensure that nothing goes wrong in the coronation ceremony. I understand. Thank you for your reminder and encouragement. I will bear it in mind and not let Sir Raphael down. Chinray said, looked at the Holy Radiance platform, and showed curiosity. Your Holiness Eudora, can I ask you something? Eudora smiled and said, Your Holiness, please go ahead. I got the inheritance of the ancient civilization, and a considerable part of it is related to the magic circle. This Holy Radiance platform contains the mystery of the power of the ancient runes, which is equivalent to a complex magic circle. Chinray carefully looked at the surrounding facilities. This magic circle should be based on something as the source, which stimulates a special power to increase the power of faith and light, especially the power of holy objects. I feel that this source is very special. It seems to have a special benefit for the integration of my spiritual imprint and the growth of my strength. Your Holiness, can you tell me what the power of this source is? I didn't expect Your Holiness Arthur to be a magic circle master? Or should I say, a guru? Seeing that Chinray did not deny it, Eudora was slightly moved. I'm not proficient in magic circle. This is the spirit-gathering circle that Sir Raphael personally set up. As for the source that Your Holiness is asking about, it is related to something that happened in Holy Peak recently. In fact, it is a person. A person. Chinray's pupils suddenly shrank. When he felt the planet that alternated between light and darkness in the illusion, he felt that something was wrong. Now when he heard Eudora's answer, an ominous omen immediately came to his mind. Chapter 1025. A person? What the hell is going on? Chinray suppressed his emotions and maintained a curious expression on his face. Eudora said indifferently, as if she was talking about a person who had nothing to do with her. She is the source of the activation of the entire ancient magic circle. Because of this, His Holiness Arthur could exert the power of the Crown of Thorns several times. Chinray's eyes flashed. When he was about to continue to ask, a guardian knight came to report. Your Holiness, His Excellency Pari broke in directly without waiting for your notice. Eudora frowned and saw that brilliant sword sage Pari had appeared at the entrance of the Cloud Plateau. Before the guardian knights along the way had time to approach him, they were repelled by a strange force and could not stop him at all. Pasari's pace had a strange rhythm. He seemed to be neither fast nor slow, but he had arrived in front of the platform of holy brilliance in the blink of an eye. Is this His Excellency Pari, the teacher of the Lord of Tsunglei Temple, Gamundan? Chinray asked knowingly. I am indebted to His Excellency Gamundan for taking care of me in the Jinyao territory. Today I can meet His Excellency Pari, whom Gamundan has always admired. It's a great honor. Last time, the resonance of the 3 holy objects alarmed Pari, so he naturally recognized the new favorite of the holy mountain of light, Holy Sun. He immediately bowed slightly. I didn't expect that His Holiness Arthur is here. Please forgive me for my rudeness. Chinray hurriedly returned the salute. You flatter me. I heard that His Excellency Pari has surpassed the saint level and entered the ranks of the Supra. Congratulations. Pari was usually generous and famous for being fair and strict. However, he seemed to be a little anxious today for no reason. He didn't say much to Chinray and said, Your Holiness Arthur, I'm sorry. I have a very urgent thing to discuss with Her Holiness Eudora. Chinray glanced at the calm Eudora and bowed. Then I will leave first, Your Holiness Eudora and Sir Pari. Eudora doesn't look at Pari and nods. Your Holiness Arthur, I will apologize to you next time. Your performance on the arena of Holy Radiance today was eye-catching. I will report this to Lord Raphael. Chinray didn't stay here. He sensibly left the cloud plateau. However, when he turned a corner away from Pari and Eudora, he quietly used a bead. The holy shadow of the robe of holy light was to create a projected bead by accumulating the power of the light. After using it, the projected bead could be summoned to fight. The projected bead had half of the combat power of the original body and all the skills. Although it was not easy to create the projected bead and it consumed a lot of the power of the light, it was not a big deal for Chinray, who had embezzled a lot of materials and treasures from the Church of Light. This time, the purpose of using the holy shadow was not to fight, but to investigate. Because of the disparity in strength, Eudora didn't notice Chinray's little action even though she had cautiously opened her perception power. She only sensed that Your Holiness Holy Son had left the peak of holy favor. Then she retreated and looked at Pari. It seems that strength can change a lot of things. Sir Pari, who has always been a good person, also dares to break into my peak of holy favor in such a majestic manner, and he even did it in front of Arthur. Eudora sneered. At this time, there was no one else around. Facing Pari, Eudora seemed to have changed into another person. The ethereal and elegant temperament was gone, and her whole person showed a kind of cold and gloomy evil spirit. Pari ignored the sarcasm in her words and asked, "Where is Eliza?" Eliza was Eudora's disciple. She was sinister and vicious. She once tried to use a special talent to steal the language of mind that Chinray showed at that time under the alias of Richard. However, she was backfired by Shura's illusion power, and her spiritual power completely collapsed. This time, Chinray only saw Miranda, and he didn't see Eliza, who should have become an idiot. He didn't expect that Pasari's first sentence was to ask about Eliza's whereabouts. Chinray's projection, who was eavesdropping on the side with this stealth spell, looked confused. Eliza was the daughter of Eudora's sister, and her uncle was Rog, one of the 3 Grand Cardinals. What did she have to do with Pari? She's fine, Eudora said coldly. You don't have to worry about her. Don't think I don't know what you are up to. Pari looked angry. I'm here today to take her away. After so many years, you finally want to shoulder the responsibility of a father? Who would have thought that the former lord of the palace of Tsung Thunder, the brilliant sword sage who swore to serve the light all his life, and the model of all the knights of the Divine Hall, actually has an illegitimate daughter? Eudora's eyes were full of sarcasm. Chinray, who was eavesdropping, was shocked. Eliza was actually Pasari's daughter. Pan Sha and I were just an accident at that time, and I didn't know that Eliza was my daughter after she married Stephen. Pari showed a painful look. I admit that I'm sorry for what happened at that time, and I'm also sorry for your sister. Eudora laughed, and her laughter was full of contempt and resentment. Not only you, but also your saintess sister Truman. If it weren't for her, if it weren't for my credulity to you, how could I be lost in that place? How could I have experienced that unforgettable ordeal? I really didn't know what happened at that time. As for Truman, although it's unforgivable, she has already died. For more than 100 years, I've done so many things for you, and even violated the justice that knights should have more than once. I've tortured my conscience more than once. These are enough to repay the favor I owe you. When I asked Paul to bring you the power of origin of fire, we didn't owe each other anymore. Humph! That's just your wishful thinking. You, your sister, and your family owe me, O Pan Sha, and you will always owe me. Just as you promised at the beginning, Eudora said coldly. Besides, the power of origin of fire and the phoenix egg were stolen by that damn heretic. That guy was introduced by your good disciple Paul. By the way, you can also say that Paul is also dead, and it has nothing to do with you. In any case, Eliza is innocent. She is Pan Shah's biological daughter. But she is also your daughter. If it weren't for Pan Shah's entrustment before her death, I wouldn't have accepted her as a disciple at all. Eudora said coldly. Do you think that you can make it up to Eliza by keeping her by your side after she suffered from that kind of accidental trauma? At least, I won't use her. Pari took a step forward, and his eyes showed a fierce momentum. Don't think that I don't know what you want to do. Although Eliza has lost her memory and her IQ is only equivalent to an ordinary child, her talent of stealing is still there. You want to use her talent to steal some ability, and then give it to yourself. Yes. Eudora did not deny her intention. Eliza inherited her mother's special talent. She can steal and give other people's talents and skills. It's different from my devour. I wanted to use her talent, but this talent is also limited. Eudora did not go on. Pari frowned more tightly. Whose power did you want to steal with her talent? Could it be? Eudora snorted coldly and did not speak. Pari was slightly shocked and had already understood. How dare you? He is the person valued by Sir Raphael, and he is also recognized as the next pope. Your desire for power has even blinded your most basic judgment ability? Chenrui then knew that Eudora's target turned out to be him, the Holy Son. I know the will of Sir Raphael better than anyone else. The Supreme Angel is already the supreme existence close to God. In their eyes, the most important thing is not identity and status, nor is it hard work. The only noun is value! Arthur is just a lucky person recognized by the crown of thorns. As long as I can steal the power of Arthur and control the crown of thorns. You can replace his position? Pari shook his head and said, You are taking it for granted. It's not that I'm replacing his position, but I'm taking back the position that belongs to me from his hands. Fendy's is already old. Sir Michael is in a deep sleep. Sir Gabriel has not appeared for hundreds of years. Now Sir Raphael is in charge of the Holy Mountain. If it weren't for the appearance of this Arthur, the next pope would be me. Eudora's voice was full of strong hatred. I was trapped in the demon realm because of Truman's trick. I almost died. Finally, I tried my best to get the artifact of the demon realm and returned. I overthrew Truman and other Holy Sun saintesses. I finally climbed to the position of patriarch step by step. I was about to reach the top, but such a damn guy appeared. My years of painstaking efforts were all in vain. Pari was silent. Originally, according to Eudora's plan, plus Raphael controlled the Holy Mountain, the position of the Pope really had a great chance to fall on her. However, now the appearance of Arthur made Eudora's previous efforts go to waste. Not only that, her position as patriarch and saintess was also quite awkward. Because the model of the three magnates originated from the three supreme angels, it was unshakable. Arthur was also Raphael's people. Even if Fendy's took over the Pope after abdication, it was impossible for him to stay in the God Seal Peak. He would be in the Holy Favor Peak, which represented Raphael, and the God Seal Peak would promote another candidate to be the patriarch. In this way, it was impossible for Eudora, who was also in Raphael's party, to continue to be the patriarch. Therefore, when Arthur took over the church, the biggest victim was Eudora. With Eudora's temperament, how could she be willing to wait for death? Don't be delusional. Pari shook his head firmly. You should already know that Arthur is not only recognized by the three holy relics, but he is also a mechanic Grand Master and potion Grand Master. His strength is also recovering rapidly. From the looks of it just now, he has stepped into the pseudo-saint level. It is only a matter of time before he becomes a real saint level. Such an amazing character with such a shocking ability can no longer be succeeded by ordinary stealing. You can't replace him unless you dare to challenge the majesty of Sir Raphael with your life. I just saw him cast the crown of thorns with my own eyes and successfully transform 10 knights. I know that my last hope is also in vain. Eudora clenched her fists. Now I only have one way left. That is to step into the Supa and become a canonization angel. Therefore, I need Eliza's power to steal a person's talent for my use. As long as I can use this to get rid of the backfire that has troubled me for many years, I can break through the realm and directly step into the kingdomization. The person you are talking about is the sacrifice you offered to Sir Raphael. Passari's eyes stared at Eudora's eyes. That girl who looks almost the same as you when you were young, what is your relationship with her? Chapter 1026. Haven't you already guessed it? Facing Passari's question, Eudora replied indifferently. Although this conversation revealed a lot of shocking secrets, she and Pari had a special contract in the early years. Plus she knew this former lover well, so Eudora wasn't worried that Pari would reveal the secret. Pari was shocked, and his face was full of disbelief. You're crazy! You actually used your own daughter. I don't have such a daughter. Eudora gritted her teeth and said, If it weren't for her, how could I suffer such humiliation that year? In this life, I will never forget that shame and hatred. I don't know why you transferred your hatred to an innocent child. I only know that the way that child looked at you was full of closeness and trust. I can imagine the difficulty and determination that she had to come to your side. Pari clenched his fists and asked loudly, Do you understand what you have done? Even if you got her ability, it's fine. Why do you have to put her to death? That transformation ritual will completely exhaust her life force. Since she is my daughter, what qualifications do you have to control her? Based on the justice that those ignorant people say? Don't forget that you are the one who is least qualified to say these two words in front of me. Eudora sneered. Elisa's mission has basically been completed. She will return to your side by tonight at the latest. I can guarantee that she will be unharmed. I can personally promise you that after this time, we will be completely even. Now, Sir Pari, do you choose to continue to stay here and reminisce the past with me, or go back to wait for your daughter? Eudora's sarcasm made Passari's eyes show pain. His clenched fists trembled, and his knuckles turned white. When you get what you think you want, you will find that you have lost more. After saying this, Pari didn't stay any longer. He turned around and left. Eudora looked at Passari's receding figure, and slowly turned her head to look in the direction of the sacred platform. You shouldn't have been born into this world. You shouldn't have appeared by my side. You are the biggest stain in my life. I cannot tolerate your existence in the past, the future, and the present. You are the same as me back then, just a tool. Originally, your value would have been preserved for more than 100 years after the gate to the realm of demons opened. Perhaps that would have been my greatest opportunity, but now that Arthur has appeared, I've been forced into a dead end. So, you can only show your value now. If you want to blame someone, blame that Arthur. He was the one who destroyed the most beautiful bubble in your heart. Eudora's voice was very low. It seemed that she was talking to herself. After a while, she turned around and left. Shinrei Projection, who had been hiding by the side using stealth, frowned. The amount of information he had eavesdropped this time was not only huge, but it was also quite shocking. After combing through the various fragments he had heard, the general content was as follows. Pari and Eudora were lovers back then. Pari had a sister, Truman, who was also a saintess. She was a competitor with Eudora. It seemed that because of Truman's conspiracy, Eudora fell into the demon realm, and she was captured by Satan. Satan forced her to combine with Raisin. Under some kind of strange power of Satan, Tiffany, who had light and darkness, was born. Later, Eudora used some unknown method to escape from Raisin. She disguised as a man and met Isabella, who was young and inexperienced. Eudora took the opportunity to confuse Isabella and swindled the Breeze Shadow Boots. She also cast a mystic art to devour Isabella's power and the secret treasure, Lightning Heart. Her power improved greatly, but due to her eagerness to succeed, she suffered the backfire of Lightning Heart. She had an incurable illness. After Eudora returned to the human world from the demon realm, she made great contributions with the Breeze Shadow Boots she obtained. She successfully defeated Truman and the other competitors and became one of the three giants step by step. As for Pari, he had an unexpected, entanglement with Eudora's sister, Pan Shao. Judging from Eliza's age, this relationship must have lasted for a long time, and there was a repeat in the middle. It might be due to a certain oath of Pari, so the two could not be together after all. Pan Shao married a guy named Stephen. The poor, Tauren, Stephen should be Cardinal Roger's brother. He helped Pari raise his daughter, Eliza, so Eliza called Roger uncle. Pan Shao told her sister Eudora the truth before she died, and she asked Eudora to take care of Eliza. After Eliza accepted Eliza as her disciple, she used it as a threat to force Pari to do many things against his will. After Eliza failed to plot against Chenrui and had a mental breakdown, Pari took Eliza with him. As a result, she was brought over by Eudora this time. She used her talent to steal a certain power from Tiffany and give it to Eudora in order to completely eliminate the backfire of Lightning Heart on Eudora and step into kingdomization. From Eudora's whisper, it could be heard that her original intention was to use Tiffany to play an unexpected role in the war between the demon realm and humans more than 100 years later. Now she could only settle for the second best. Eudora could only describe this daughter who came all the way to find her as cold-blooded and ruthless. Speaking of which, Eudora did not treat Eliza well either. She raised Eliza into a vicious girl. Chenrui was most worried about Tiffany now. From the conversation between Eudora and Pari, it could be seen that Eudora had successfully used Tiffany's power and almost completely eliminated the backfire of Lightning Heart on her body. She would soon step into Super Demon. Tiffany not only lost her power, but she also became the energy core of the amplification magic circle of the entire Holy Glory platform. The experiment just now had already consumed a part of her vitality. If 100 Temple Knights were transformed at the coronation ceremony, Tiffany would definitely be exhausted and completely annihilated. Fortunately, she discovered this secret in advance. It just so happened that during this time, due to the secret conversation between Eudora and Pari, the rest of the people were dismissed, so Chenrui began to use analytical eyes to explore the magic circle of the entire platform of glory. This spirit-gathering circle based on ancient runes was personally set by Raphael. It was extremely profound and contained the powerful power of pseudo-god. With Chenrui's current level, he couldn't crack it. Besides, the existence time of his projection was limited. There was only about half an hour left. Analytical eyes didn't have Tiffany's information. If Tiffany wasn't imprisoned in a very far place, then she was blocked by some kind of space power. Chenrui calmed down and recalled the direction of Eudora's previous whisper. He tried his best to use the mystery of deep analysis and began to search in that location. Sure enough, he faintly found a hidden space fluctuation. Raphael should be extremely proficient in ancient runes. In terms of ability and strength, Chenrui definitely couldn't unlock the seal of this ancient rune circle. However, in the Battle of the Golden Brilliance Underground Palace's Altar of Fear, he witnessed the battle between Raphael and the Lord of Fear, Sasbaka's projection. Raphael's ultimate move, Seed of Sacrifice, was an epic ancient rune. At that time, this rune was recorded by Chenrui using deep analysis. Although he couldn't fully understand it, he had mastered some of the characteristics and skills during that period. Based on this, he began to use a special method. This method was actually a rather advanced rune application, reversing the power of the runes. It could restore or offset the effect of some runes, especially the runes of concealment. Chenrui followed Raphael's style and carefully exerted this power. After a while, he finally successfully activated the power of reversal without disturbing the entire rune's circle. The space in front was first concave, then gradually protruded and began to show an image. Due to some kind of refraction of source power, this image could only be seen by Chenrui, who was in this position. Ordinary people couldn't see it. Although he was mentally prepared, when Chenrui saw the situation in the space, his heart still trembled fiercely. Among them, the most eye-catching was the delicate female body. She seemed to be embedded in some kind of tree. Her hands and feet were fused with the tree, and countless roots extended out. They were like countless blood transfusion tubes, continuously transmitting her life and soul power to the entire stage of holy radiance. It really is Tiffany. Her originally light blue hair had already turned gray. What was even more shocking was that even though her life force could be felt, her blue eyes were completely dull, as if she was completely dead. There was no sorrow greater than a dead heart. Compared with the physical trauma, the psychological trauma was the most fatal. Chenrui knew that Tiffany had a dual personality. One was naive and innocent, the other was strong and persistent. No matter which personality it was, the biggest obsession in her heart was only one. For this reason, she was willing to be the key to enter the mysterious place to obtain the silver box. Chenrui had experienced those terrible dangers with her. He knew that the driving force that supported her to live was to go to the human world to find her mother. After gaining freedom, she refused the throne of the Bloody Empire and the Bloody Ring. She resolutely came to the strange human world and went through hardships to find her mother. However, Chenrui could imagine what kind of damage it would bring when the most precious obsession in her heart was shattered by the so-called mother. "Tiffany, can you hear me?" Ordinary words might be blocked by the space, so Chenrui could only try to communicate with her through the mind with analytical eyes. "I don't know if you can hear me, but no matter what, please don't give up hope. Do you remember a friend from back then? I'm here to save you. Can you hear me?" No matter how Chenrui tried, the feedback from analytical eyes was only dead silence. Even the most basic spirit or soul fluctuations did not respond at all, as if she was not a living person at all. Whether it was strength or skill, this great array was by no means something that Chenrui could crack now. Even if he could freely use the Tower of Glory, he could not take Tiffany away from that imprisonment directly. Therefore, he could only wait patiently for a better opportunity. Tiffany's image began to dim. After all, the time of the reverse force was limited, and Chenrui's own projection was about to expire. Her figure was gradually thinning. "Wait for me, I will save you." After saying this, the projection disappeared. "Definitely." In the Temple of Holy Light, the real body added. She clenched her fists, and her eyes showed a firm light. Chapter 1027. Chenrui's trial at the Blessed Peak was quite successful, and Raphael was obviously very satisfied with it. The materials that Chenrui usually asked for had increased by 10 times out of thin air. Although this was quite an amazing resource, Chenrui's heart was heavy. Because of Tiffany. He didn't have much contact with Tiffany. It first originated from the Tetris game where the mistakes made would accumulate, and the successes gained would disappear. Then, he saw the other her in Mountain Secret. It was not until the last time he went to the mysterious place to look for the silver box that he had a real intersection with this woman who should be regarded as his fiancée. That kind of persistence at all costs left a deep impression on him. Unfortunately, now that his biggest obsession had been cruelly shattered, it was better to die than to live. I must rescue Tiffany as soon as possible. If I drag it until the coronation ceremony and continue to act as Arthur, then the transformation ritual will sacrifice Tiffany. This choice is definitely impossible. Then I can only turn hostile and fight with Raphael. But even if I escape by luck, I can't take Tiffany away. The spirit-gathering circle is not only profound and mysterious, but it also contains Raphael's own pseudo-god power. Chenrui's current ability alone can't break this circle and release Tiffany. However, there is one person who should be able to, and that is Ben Hong. Before Chenrui could mention it, Ben Hong spoke first. "In the spirit-gathering circle just now, there seems to be something you want. Or someone you want to take away?" Ben Hong had been in the 6-star mark on Chenrui's arm. Although he didn't hear what Chenrui's projection eavesdropped, Ben Hong was meticulous. He had already guessed something based on Chenrui's previous performance on the Holy Brilliant platform. "As expected, nothing can be hidden from Lord Ben Hong. May I ask, do you have a way to do this? You're too modest. I don't know how many things you've done." The 6-star mark shook and Ben Hong's figure appeared in front of him. He said unhurriedly, "And you don't have to provoke me because I'm not sure if I can break this formation. You're the one who's humble. Chinrui didn't want to play games with Ben Hong and went straight to the point. Just as you guessed, I must rescue my friend who is being used as a sacrifice in the spirit gathering array. Please help me, sir. Raphael is the best at ancient runes among the three angels. I just roughly sensed the spirit gathering array, and it felt unfathomable. It contains not only the mystery of the array, but also the power of Raphael himself. It's impossible to rescue the imprisoned person silently. If we break it by force, not only do we need to understand the mystery of this array, but we also need to have the strength to eliminate Raphael's power. Judging from the current situation, we definitely can't succeed. Even if I break it by force, it will definitely alarm Raphael. Before we can rescue the person, Raphael will have arrived. We have no chance. You're also well versed in ancient runes yourself, so you should know that I'm not making an excuse. So what Sir means is, first, figure out the mystery of the spirit gathering array as soon as possible, then Sir can break it. Chinrui asked tentatively. You also know my current situation. Even if my soul power is at its peak state, I'm still not the opponent of the three angels in this holy mountain. Although I didn't get the power of the Holy Grail to nourish my soul, you should have noticed that my soul is growing day by day. This is precisely because of the origin of creation. I need to further comprehend and strengthen the power of creation. I know that the comprehension of creation you possess is far beyond mine. Although I don't understand why it is like this, I can be sure that with your current strength, even if you fully comprehend the origin of creation, you still can't resolve Raphael's power. As he said, there was a hint of meaning in Ben Hong's voice. To put it bluntly, we have reservations in terms of the comprehension of the power of creation. If you really want to rescue your friend, then you must be honest with me and truly exchange the comprehension of creation with me. I can swear with my soul that after I obtain the complete comprehension of creation, I will definitely help you rescue your friend. Chinrui was very clear about Ben Hong's intention: blackmail. In fact, a certain concern in Ben Hong's heart had actually existed for a long time. Chinrui easily obtained the power of origin of creation to go to the brilliant shrine to comprehend the book of creation. It was originally a great advantage, but unexpectedly, the speed of Chinrui's comprehension of creation was far faster than hers. Ben Hong could even vaguely feel that Chinrui's origin of creation was close to great success. Once he completely comprehended the power of the origin of creation and rescued his friend, he would definitely not stay in the holy mountain. At that time, even if he did not fall out with her or plot against her and just left, Ben Hong would not be able to stay in the holy mountain to continue to comprehend the origin of creation. Now that Chinrui had a favor to ask of her, it was a good opportunity to take the opportunity to make an offer. Completely and honestly exchange the comprehension of creation? Chinrui revealed a look of contemplation. Although your comprehension is above mine, your strength has not reached this pseudo-god level after all. You can't really understand and master this comprehension, and you can't achieve a qualitative change. If you integrate my comprehension, you will have a high chance of directly breaking through to the pseudo-god level. Ben Hong's voice was full of temptation, but Chinrui was very clear that this was not nonsense. Unfortunately, his real basic strength was still in the kingdomization, and the next step should be the demigod level. We can exchange a little every day. You give me some of the power of creation that you have comprehended, and I will return it to you according to the fusion power of the power of creation. You can comprehend the power of the pseudo-god level from it. Ben Hong revealed an indifferent smile. This should be a more appropriate solution. If you have a better solution, why don't you say it, or think about it for a while longer? However, it seems like your friend can't wait too long. Chinrui frowned. The last sentence had indeed hit the nail on the head. Ben Hong took the opportunity to say, I can promise you that even if we can't comprehend the complete source of creation during this period of time, I will do my best to help you save your friend before the crowning ceremony. How about it? This is my last bottom line. Okay. Chinrui weighed the pros and cons and finally agreed. I can guarantee that you will not regret your decision today, Ben Hong said with a smile. If you don't mind, we can use the soul fusion technique like last time. That is the fastest and safest way. When comprehending in the brilliant shrine, we can also use this method of fusion, and it will be twice the result with half the effort. Don't misunderstand, I have no intention of controlling you. Don't forget that last time, my soul clone was annihilated in your kind of power similar to the kingdom of God. This time, I won't be stupid enough to make the same mistake again. After all, we have common interests, don't we? Chenrei stared at Ben Hong's smile. Although he couldn't see her true face, he could feel the special charm contained in that smile. This was not a kind of artificial temptation, but the attraction of the supreme power in the soul. It was probably related to the soul fusion last time. Indeed, the soul fusion could not be faked. It could prevent the other party from cheating when exchanging insights. Chenrei's mind turned quickly, and he also smiled. Why not? That kind of wonderful feeling is still fresh in my memory. In the following days, Chenrei went to the Peak of Holy Blessings cloud platform every few days in the name of understanding and familiarizing himself with the aura-gathering circle. In order to avoid Raphael and Eudora's suspicions, he deliberately experimented again after showing the strength of the peak stage of the Demon Emperor and successfully transformed 20 Temple Knights. Chenrei definitely didn't dare to do this kind of experiment too much because it would consume Tiffany's vitality every time. Every time he was familiarizing with the Holy Brilliance platform, he was also using analytical eyes to constantly call Tiffany through his soul, but unfortunately, there was still no response. Compared with Tiffany's stagnant progress, after Chenrei and Ben Hong exchanged insights in the form of soul fusion, both parties' understanding of the origin of creation had increased by leaps and bounds. Another month had passed. Chenrei clearly felt that his understanding of the origin of creation was close to the realm of true perfection. This was due to deep analysis and the tree of nature. Ben Hong's pseudo-god power also contributed a lot. Although Ben Hong got part of Chenrei's insights, and her creation power had also been greatly improved. Her originally damaged soul had also healed, but she still couldn't master the complete origin power. She also felt Chenrei's progress, and she was secretly anxious. In the evening, the moonlight shone on the Holy Light City, making it look exceptionally bright. At this time, it was less than a week before the start of the coronation ceremony. All the preparations related to the coronation ceremony in the entire White Cliff were basically complete. Many invited guests had arrived in advance to stay in the Holy Light City. There was an endless stream of people who went to see the Holy Sun, but without exception, Chenrei rejected them with the excuse of meditating and preparing for the ceremony. He really needed to calm down because the brewing and preparation of the previous period was finally coming to an end. Sir Ben Hong, the study of the spirit gathering circle is almost done. At this time tomorrow, we should go to the ascending cloud plateau to rescue that friend. The spirit gathering circle that Tiffany was imprisoned in was no trivial matter. In order to be safe, they couldn't wait until the coronation ceremony. They must act in advance. Of course, I won't break my promise to you. So let's comprehend the origin of creation for the last time in front of the brilliant shrine. Chenrei nodded, took out the pass badge given by Raphael, and opened the space channel. This badge had a time limit, 1 hour a day, and it could only be used for dozens of days in total. It would expire at the coronation ceremony. Through the space channel, Chenrei once again arrived in front of the familiar brilliant shrine. The pass badge had the special power to be immune to the protective circle in front of the brilliant shrine, but it was only limited to the front of the brilliant shrine. If one tried to enter the brilliant shrine in vain, he would definitely not succeed, and would even suffer terrible attacks. Raphael had already told him about this. Chenrei had risked his life to enter the shrine before, so he knew how terrifying it was inside. The magic circles and traps now were definitely more powerful than before, so he didn't act rashly. Ben Hong's voice sounded. Recently, I seem to be on the verge of comprehending the complete origin. As long as I succeed, even if I leave here, I can still continue to comprehend. I have a feeling that success is today. Really? Chenrei smiled. What a coincidence, I have the same feeling. Then, let's begin. Chapter 1028. The feeling of complete soul fusion was wonderful. The pleasure was almost indescribable in words. Some feelings were even better than the copulation between men and women. Especially after trying to fuse many times, it was so addictive that he couldn't give up. Shenrui was now immersed in this pleasure. For some reason, the feeling today seemed to be stronger than before. His soul was almost lost. Ben Hong's voice sounded in time. Calm your mind. Let's comprehend the origin of creation together. Shenrui took a deep breath, concentrated, expanded the fused soul power, and sensed the breath released by the book of creation. Through the memory imprint of deep analysis, he constantly verified it with his own power of creation. The power of creation in his body continued to change. Like a seed, it began to slowly germinate and grow from a sprout to a small tree, and then slowly grew into a big tree, step by step. In the past, when the final, big tree took shape, the condensed power of origin began to collapse, and it always fell short of success. Today seemed to be particularly smooth. The trunk of the big tree had grown completely, and it was rapidly growing branches and leaves. There was no sign of collapse at all. If it could be completely created and formed, then it was possible to comprehend the complete origin of creation and undergo a qualitative change. The branches and leaves of the big tree began to flourish, and the vague feeling of origin also became clearer bit by bit. However, at the moment when the towering tree was about to be completely formed, Shenrui's soul power could no longer maintain that subtle feeling, and the signs of collapse appeared again. As he was anxious, a large amount of pure breath was transmitted from his soul. The strong feeling of the combination of soul and flesh appeared again. His own soul power instantly became abundant, and the signs of collapse gradually disappeared. The big tree began to continue to condense and form. This was the soul power transmitted by Ben Hong. Originally, Shenrui's soul should maintain vigilant resistance to this power, but condensing the complete origin of creation was too tempting. Now that it was the last day of staying in the holy mountain as planned, coupled with his instinct being attracted by that wonderful feeling, Shenrui finally couldn't resist the temptation. He gradually gave up resistance and blended in with this power. In the first place, he had been lacking that final push, and with the support of the semi-divinity realm soul energy, he felt as though he had been infused with vigor, and an incomparable amount of energy filled his soul. With the help of this power, the tree in his soul grew faster and faster. With a flash of dazzling light, it finally completed the final formation process. This was a towering tree. Every leaf and every branch was brimming with a vast life force and the profound truths of the universe. At the same time, Shenrui felt a special law aura in his soul. This law was the complete opposite of destruction. The only similarity was that it was extremely powerful. Law of creation. Moreover, it was a complete creation law of nature. Shenrui was overjoyed. It was at this moment that, in his soul, in that towering tree, he saw a face. The face was made from all the branches and leaves. It was the face of a woman. The tree that created the origin was actually, Shenrui was shocked. He saw the face reveal a strange smile, and a familiar voice rang out. Are you surprised? Ben Hong! Shenrui finally realized that something was wrong. What did you do? Didn't I comprehend the origin of creation law? That's right. You have indeed comprehended the complete origin of creation. This was accomplished with my help. Ben Hong smiled proudly. In return, I've decided to accept your body and soul. Shenrui's consciousness retreated from his soul. Only then did he realize that the entire space had become pitch black. His body and life force seemed to have been bitten, chewed, and digested by countless mouths. That feeling was simply chilling. Don't try to do useless things like calling for help or using spatial skills to escape, because the space here is an independent existence. It's completely isolated from the outside world. Do you feel a sense of familiarity? That's right. This is the Tower of Glory. The Tower of Glory, Shenrui said in shock. How can you use it? My soul imprint is not used like that. Most of the soul imprint that you burned during the previous experiment has seeped into this artifact. Although I can't control this artifact for the time being, it's enough to summon it and perform some simple functions. Such a spatial artifact, even if I can't use its 3 strongest abilities, it still has many wonderful uses. For example, isolating the space now. Of course, this requires the power of a pseudo-god. This is a level that you will never reach in your lifetime because your life is about to end. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to obtain the origin of creation law. Don't force me. Are you still trying to bluff? Ben Hong smiled. I've already determined that your power, which is similar to a god nation, can only target the invading soul. What I'm devouring now is not only your soul, but also your body. As long as I strip and devour your body and soul from the outside layer by layer, what's left is the complete origin of creation. I've been preparing for this day for a long time. Devour the whole person? Chen Rui could not help but shiver. It turned out that Ben Hong actually had such a terrifying plan. You can try to buy time to escape. For example, you can ask some questions, and I will patiently answer them one by one before your body and consciousness completely dissipate. This is my last greeting to you. Since this is the last question, let me die knowing the answer. How do I break that spirit-gathering formation? Ben Hong revealed a look of astonishment. Even now, you're still thinking about that woman. It's really surprising. To tell you the truth, it's almost impossible to save that woman. The spirit-gathering formation not only contains Raphael's own power, but also the holy mountain of light's huge psychic power. It's almost perfect. Only when the spirit-gathering formation is activated will it be at its weakest, and you can use the reverse runes method to break the shackles. But at that time, how can you save people under Raphael's eyes? Using the reverse runes method when the spirit-gathering formation is activated? Doesn't that have to be done during the coronation ceremony? Shinrei sighed. This is really difficult. It's more than difficult, but I think you should be more concerned about your current situation. Ben Hong's face condensed into a smile. So, do you have any last words? The demon realm and the human world have a war every 500 years. What's the secret in it? Why can't the demon realm succeed even once? Even if they are close to victory, they will inexplicably fail? In fact, it's not called failure. It's just that there's no result because humans can't attack the demon realm. No result is the rule of war. Once someone violates the rule, he will be corrected. Ben Hong's answer shocked Chen Rui as if he had touched a big secret. More than 300 years ago, the demon realm's Lord of Midnight Sun led an army to attack the human world. He was about to win, but he died mysteriously in the end. It turned out that it was the result of being corrected. Why is this happening? Did the super powerhouse participate in the war? Ben Hong didn't answer, but he asked, You should have seen the ritual of sacrifice. How can the sacrificer use himself as a sacrifice? You mean? Shinrei was moved. This kind of war is actually some kind of sacrifice. You won't understand even if I say more. Ben Hong's contemptuous voice suddenly changed. There was a bit of horror in it. My power! What did you do? You finally noticed it? Shinrei smiled. This seems to be the original words I asked you before. It seems too uncreative to copy it like this. This is deprive? You actually used deprive on me. Ben Hong's voice rose, and the swallowing power in the surrounding space suddenly skyrocketed. Reckless guy. However, that power suddenly stopped. The face condensed by the entire tree crown was distorted, and it let out a shrill scream. No! Such a vast power of faith and creation. This is not your own power. Ben Hong. Shinrei's voice resounded in his entire soul. Do you still remember what I said to Michael? You underestimated me. It was the same last time, and it's the same this time. Previously, you needed time to digest my body and soul, but I was also stalling. To be more precise, I was brewing. Damn it! What kind of tree is this? Countless extending branches and leaves had already enveloped Ben Hong's face. It was as if his entire soul had been imprisoned. Is it impossible? I was already prepared that you would have bad intentions, so I deliberately accepted or borrowed your power, and mastered the law of creation. Including the Tower of Glory, I also deliberately let you summon it. This way, you can isolate my movements. Stop! Ben Hong's voice was filled with fear. I will remove my control over you now. I can save your woman. I swear on my soul. Chen Rui ignored Ben Hong and just said to himself, Your biggest failure is that you don't understand what a complete origin of creation means to me. There were some words that Chen Rui did not say out loud. The power accumulated by the tree of nature. The complete fusion of the soul of Arthur. The understanding of the two origin laws of destruction and creation. When the quantitative change had reached the extreme, all that was needed was an opportunity for a qualitative change to occur. Creation was this opportunity. This was the last way to completely eliminate the hidden danger that was Ben Hong. At this moment, the curtain was finally lifted. Chen Rui closed his eyes, and the aura around him began to change strangely. Circles of crystal white light were emitted, and the white light contained the two origin auras of creation and destruction. Ben could seem to feel that some kind of terrifying danger was about to descend, and he became hysterical again. Stop, or else I will detonate my entire soul, and we will perish together! Chen Rui did not speak anymore, and the white light around him began to become more and more clear, full of vitality like an endless galaxy. He did not use any tools or skills, nor did he use polar transformation, but the mysteries contained in the galaxy seemed to be even better than the Star Domain Kingdom in his strongest state. Ben Hong had never thought that his original plan, which he had a well-thought-out plan, would actually suffer such an unbelievable reversal. She felt that her entire soul-body was disintegrating bit by bit in this change. Gritting her teeth, she detonated a part of her soul-body at all costs. This power was so huge that even Raphael and Michael could not ignore it. If they were not in the space of the Tower of Glory, even the entire peak of the Holy Mountain would be shocked. At the moment of the explosion, Chen Rui opened his eyes. The power of destruction in his left eye, and the power of creation in his right eye. It was as if his entire body had become the vast universe. The terrifying soul explosion in that vast universe was like a wave in the sea, fleeting. The next moment, the galaxy emitted an incomparably bright light. Chapter 1029. The galaxy spread out as if it was connected with the space of the Tower of Glory. It looked endless. The galaxy territory in the supersystem was also extended. There were countless small groups in the original galaxy territory. Galaxy. If the original galaxy territory was a large galaxy, then the current galaxy territory was a territory in the true sense. Just like the vast Milky Way contained hundreds of billions of stars, this galaxy territory also gave birth to a large number of stars. Not every star would form a galaxy, but stars were the most basic core of the formation of a galaxy. Countless galaxies began to appear, and life was born. Although many were only the most basic life forms, evolution would be completed step by step over time. Not only was there birth, but there was also destruction. Where there was life, there was death. The survival of the fittest was also the law of the universe. Some of the dead stars exploded, producing a gorgeous nebula, and some formed white dwarfs or black holes in the strong solar wind. These processes of birth and destruction that should have taken hundreds of thousands, billions, or even longer were formed in an instant. The ages were just like an instant. Destruction and creation gradually formed a delicate balance. Regardless of the speed of birth or death, the expanding huge galaxy territory stabilized in this balance. This kind of galaxy territory change was not only reflected in the supersystem, but also in the nebula beside Chen Rui. In this evolution process, the shape of a tree loomed between Chen Rui's eyebrows. Soon, his body scattered and turned into countless bright stars, merging with the entire nebula. They were indistinguishable from each other. The tree in the nebula was getting bigger and bigger. Looking closely, it was actually condensed from stardust. The only thing that was not stardust was the female body, embedded in the tree. Her body was firmly bound by a chain-like object. Part of her body had fallen into the tree trunk, and more parts were being assimilated by the tree trunk. It was Ben Hong. To be precise, it was the core of her soul. Ben Hong's mood at this time could be described as horrified. She had been planning for a long time. Today, she launched it in one fell swoop. Not only did she want Chunrei's life, but more importantly, she wanted to seize the complete origin of creation. What she was most afraid of was Chunrei's special ability that was similar to the Divine Kingdom. She had suffered greatly because of this ability last time. That was why Ben Hong had sacrificed a portion of his power to fuse his soul core with Chunrei in a special way. Then, he had used his soul brand to control and use the power of the Tower of Glory, he thought it was, to isolate the entire space. In this way, not only would the Divine Kingdom be unable to display its power, but Chunrei's ultimate escape technique, the Space Gate, and the Seal of Wind, would also be rendered useless. Ben Hong was confident that her preparations were foolproof. She did not think that she, a peak pseudo-god, would not be able to kill a mere demigod. Who knew that she would still miscalculate? Even in this kind of situation, she was still inconceivably overturned. Looking at the changes in this universe, and feeling the incomparably real and vast aura, the shock in his heart was simply indescribable. Even though Zhang Xian had no idea what was going on, the most important thing right now was not how to kill the other party and seize the source of creation, but how to escape. It was a pity that he could not even do that. The core of Ben Hong's soul core was firmly imprisoned by the chains of the tree of nature, and the power of the self-destruction of his soul that he had desperately unleashed was absorbed by the mysterious power when the entire star sector was formed. The entire nebula spread out, and instead, it enveloped Ben Hong's entire soul. Under the effect of this vast and wondrous power that was similar to the birth of the universe, the soul power that had originally surrounded Chunrei's body and was trying to devour him was split apart, disintegrated, and sucked in by the sucking. Ben Hong screamed unwillingly. Even his soul was burning. He continuously performed various means, but in the end, he could not break free from the shackles of the tree of nature. He could only watch as his soul collapsed bit by bit. Finally, the entire star sector was formed, and in the nebula of the Tower of Glory, countless star particles condensed into a human figure. The dazzling light gradually faded, and Chunrei's appearance was restored, surrounded by sparkling stardust. Right now, Chunrei's aura was completely restrained, and there was no special change in his appearance. However, the look in his eyes was more profound than before, or rather, more unpredictable. On the tree of nature, Ben Hong's entire body had been melted into the tree of nature, leaving only her head. Her external soul power had been completely annihilated. If even the last bit of her soul core was melted, then her entire soul would be completely annihilated and turned into nutrients for the tree of nature. Ben Hong, a peak false god who used to be on par with Michael and Satan, would also cease to exist. Who the hell are you? Ben Hong's voice was already very weak. Why do you have the tree of life of the elves? I only know that it's called the tree of nature. Chunrei floated to the front of the tree of nature and looked at Ben Hong calmly. Actually, it's not just the tree of nature that's binding you. There's also the prohibition of wind and fire, a gift that the adorable Lord Raphael gave to me, his enemy, a long time ago. Now I can finally use it freely, just like the Tower of Glory. You don't have to worry about us being exposed, because no one outside will know what's happening here. This was almost exactly what Ben Hong had said, and it sounded very harsh now. Are you an elf? Demons? A human? Or some other existence? None of that matters. Your life is hanging by a thread now. If you choose to surrender, I can give you a way out. Ha! Ben Hong laughed out loud. His laughter was filled with arrogance. You are just a lowly person pretending to be mysterious. You are only relying on a few external objects. Even Michael doesn't have this right, let alone you. I'll give you 10 minutes to think about it. You want to use these 10 minutes to familiarize yourself with the new power you've just obtained. Ben Hong said coldly. I thought you were very powerful, causing such a big commotion, but you've only advanced by a small level. A mere peak demigod wants me to surrender? Dream on. In Ben Hong's mind, Chunrui should have displayed demigod-level power in the battle against Michael. This time, he had advanced to the peak demigod, but he was still a demigod. Ben Hong's words made Chunrui laugh. That's right, his current power level was indeed that of a peak demigod without using any skills. Ben Hong's voice sounded, a deep and unfathomable power in his tone. There are gains and losses in everything in the world. No matter how deep the possession, there will always be a time when it's stripped away and lost. The real cruelty is human nature. The real poison is the human heart. Clearly, Ben Hong was unwilling to admit defeat, so he decided to stake it all and burn his remaining soul power. Even if he only had a little bit of soul power left, a peak demigod was still a peak demigod. The crystalline stardust around Chunrui kept changing, sometimes being stripped away and dissipated, and other times, they would decay and wither. Chunrui did not dodge. He closed his eyes and let Ben Hong do what he wanted. He had already become one with the entire star sector. Although some of his power was eroded and destroyed, it was quickly replenished. It was endless and endless. With Ben Hong's current strength and the protection of the tree of nature, it was impossible to hurt him. So, this is power. Chunrui slowly opened his eyes, and his pupils had already turned purple. At the same time, his entire body instantly emitted a strong purple light. The purple light was extremely dazzling, and in the blink of an eye, it had already covered the power that Ben Hong had displayed. This power made Ben Hong's soul tremble uncontrollably. No! Impossible! Ben Hong's voice was filled with disbelief and shock. To be able to make her soul, even if it was only a sliver of it, such pressure, it was definitely not a demigod. False god. Ben Hong spoke with a trembling voice. This wasn't the end of her shock, because she could clearly sense that this level of strength wasn't something that a false god who had just advanced to the false god realm could achieve. Power should be a combination of the power of faith and the power of life. It has a powerful effect of words and thoughts, and can be understood as words are law. In the dazzling purple light, the figure with 6 pairs of wings faintly appeared and said calmly. Then, as swift as the wind, the figure instantly turned into countless rays of light, intertwining to form a net. Ben Hong only felt her soul perception blur for a moment, but she immediately came to a realization. This was high-speed movement. She was actually unable to determine the trajectory of that movement. Although her soul was currently very weak, and she could not use her strongest senses, it was still enough to shock Ben Hong. The power of speed. In terms of speed alone, it had faintly approached, or even reached the level of a peak false god. Countless rays of purple light merged together to form that resplendent human figure. Perhaps it was because he was no longer moving at high speed, but Ben Hong felt the contrast slow down, as if everything had slowed down. She immediately became alert. No! It really became slow. At this time, the voice containing special power sounded in her ears. Under the influence of some kind of power, it sounded heavy and slow when it fell into her ears. Su, are you, Lin? Ben Hong's heart trembled. This was slow. No! It was time. It contained the power of the law of time. In her impression, the most powerful person who could control time was Satan, the biggest rival of the demon realm, and the power of time displayed by this figure did not seem to be inferior to Satan. Perhaps it was to try out the newly comprehended power. The change in time only lasted for a moment before it returned to normal. However, Ben Hong suddenly became alarmed, because the figure in her sight had instantly accumulated a power that made her feel extremely dangerous. This attack must be earth-shattering destructive power. Ben Hong could not be more familiar with this kind of law, the origin of destruction. However, she did not expect that Chun-Rei could actually use the origin of destruction to increase the attack power to such an extent. This was a level that even she had not reached. To be more precise, this was a special kind of superposition. He seemed to have sensed it somewhere before. Right, it should be from the structure of the extreme universe annihilation. This structure could multiply one's strength by an unimaginable amount. It was extremely terrifying. Ben Hong knew that it was a matter of life and death. If this attack hit, she would be completely destroyed without any suspense. Before Chun-Rei could launch an attack, she immediately used the last of her strength to launch her own power. Lose everything. Deprive. Just as the power of deprivation was about to reach Chun-Rei, the invasion like fire that Chun-Rei had just said immediately followed up. Immovable like a mountain. As soon as this voice came out, the space around her seemed to solidify. The power that could deprive Michael of his ability could not penetrate the barrier of this space. Space barrier. This is the power of space integrated with the Tower of Glory. Ben Hong almost moaned as she shouted, her voice full of despair. Speed, time, destruction, space. Just one of these four powers was enough to show disdain for her peers, but this enemy actually had all of them. Moreover, this was only in the situation where she had not fully grasped them yet after advancing. Ben Hong was definitely not a person who gave up easily. It could be seen from the fact that she was willing to give up her body to obtain the silver box. However, she no longer had any hope now, because she did not even have a trace of luck. Chapter 1030. The core power of Ben Hong's soul was almost exhausted, and her will was also on the verge of collapse after Chun-Rei performed the battle of the four powers. At this point, she only had one last move left: self-destruct the core. Such a soul core was in fact a pseudo-divinity. The pseudo-divinity was the condensation of the faith and life essence of all nations. Once it was detonated, the destructive power would be extremely shocking. However, judging from the situation where Ben Hong detonated a part of her soul power, coupled with the amazing power that Chun-Rei had just displayed, even if she detonated the pseudo-divinity, it would be very difficult to destroy this strange and terrifying enemy. On the contrary, Ben Hong herself would definitely be reduced to ashes. However, if she did not self-destruct, there was no way for Ben Hong to survive. After being destroyed by Chun-Rei, the pseudo-divinity might still be preserved and become his possession. This was the only choice she had left. Just as Ben Hong made up her mind to detonate the pseudo-divinity, she felt dizzy and a pure and vast halo appeared in front of her. Even Ben Hong couldn't help but be shocked by the energy contained in this ball of light. On the surface of the halo, there were sparkling and translucent star marks, forming a whole special symbol. This unknown symbol seemed to have some kind of special restraining power, firmly sealing the astonishing energy in it. The restraining aura seemed to be able to seal everything, including the soul. It made Ben Hong shudder, as if she had seen some kind of natural enemy. Chun-Rei's voice sounded. Do you know the owner of this energy, the previous owner? Ben shook her head. Right now, the only thing she could move was her head. Quiriana. This name shocked Ben Hong. As one of the senior peak pseudo-divinities, she naturally knew what this name meant. This halo was actually the power of the clone of the supreme ruler of the abyss, Quiriana. No wonder there was such a pure aura. This is the power of her clone projection. As you can see, it was sealed by me. To be more precise, I devoured part of it. These are not devoured yet. Ben Hong immediately realized that Chun-Rei had obviously just advanced, so this power should be sealed when he was still a demigod. Judging from the strength and purity of that energy, it was definitely a complete clone at its peak state. Quiriana was the leader of the three rulers. Although it was only a clone, not to mention a demigod, even a normal false god would not be able to match it. Even Quiriana's clone was imprisoned and devoured. Ben Hong suddenly felt that it was not an injustice to lose. I know you want to self-destruct, but I can tell you that your self-destruction is useless against me. Furthermore, with this sealing power, You can't even self-destruct because you're bound by the tree of nature and the seal of wind and fire. A sword appeared in Chinrei's hand. This is not the only bane of your existence. There is also this, the sword of fallen angel. It can kill souls. Perhaps you should call it the seal of light. Ben Hong exclaimed. You can actually have the seal of light and the seal of earth at the same time. Before she could finish, a suit of armor appeared on Chinrei's body. And this should be the seal of fire, right? Ben's heart trembled. You. Who exactly are you? Who I am is not important. What's important is your choice now. I won't say this for the third time. Become a part of this energy in front of you, or absorb this power and submit to me. The eyes of the purple figure on the face of the purple figure shone brightly and fell into Ben Hong's eyes. You have at least 1 minute left. When there is no hope at all, when people are forced to a dead end, they will always have the determination to die, and the greatest courage will break out. However, when there is hope, the desperate mentality will become loose. No one really wanted to be annihilated, especially an expert with such power. Ben Hong looked at the huge energy that was sealed. After a moment of silence, he finally sighed. You win. A moment later, Arthur reappeared in the Hall of Holy Light. Just like in the past, no one knew what happened during the Enlightenment in the Hall of Light this time. Isabella and Rala were still in seclusion in the side hall of the Hall of Holy Light. Isabella had already completely digested the divine scale of Dragon Emperor Palgoris, and with Ben Hong's guidance, she was trying her best to break through to the level of a kingdom. Rala was studying the power structure of the extreme universe annihilation that Chinrei had given her. She wanted to integrate it into her ultimate move, Elemental Rage, to exert greater power. In fact, during this period of time, besides receiving guidance from Ben Hong, Isabella and Rala rarely met with Chinrei, let alone being intimate with him. The reason was very simple. Ben Hong was an unscrupulous person, so Chinrei specially instructed the 2 girls, Samuel, and the others to keep a distance. He also gave them a special warning device. If there was a situation, it could be immediately alerted, and they could be stored away in the star-sealing platform in time to avoid accidents. This concern was by no means superfluous. Ben Hong was a scheming person. Back in the Jinyao territory, he had seen Chinrei's space ability to collect people. Now that he had come to the holy mountain of light and mastered more understanding of the origin of creation, he temporarily put away some of his thoughts. Rala and Isabella were not under any control. This was also Ben Hong's intention, to cast a long line to catch a big fish. But she never thought that it would be such an ending. Chinrei did not alarm Isabella and Rala. He needed to calm down and carefully feel the newly acquired power. Just now, in front of the Hall of Light, he used Ben Hong's help to comprehend the complete origin of creation. The accumulated power finally broke through the bottleneck in one fell swoop, and successfully subdued Ben Hong. Although the feeling of soul fusion could be described as bone-piercing ecstasy, Chinrei had never let go of his intention to kill Ben Hong. The reason why he chose to surrender was that Ben Hong's value alive was greater than annihilation. She mastered countless ancient secrets, and she herself had great strength. Chinrei stole the snow dowlet tree, killed the church's angel, and was likely to do something amazing next. In addition to the covetous eyes of the demon realms Satan and Charlie, if he wanted to completely control his fate in his hands, it would be inevitable to meet or conflict with these strongest opponents in the future. In particular, Chinrei had to take care of the relatives and friends around him that he valued. By then, Ben Hong would be a good help. Of course, if Ben Hong was not willing to surrender, then he would annihilate her without hesitation. Ben Hong finally chose to surrender. After signing the spiritual link to establish a master-slave relationship, Chinrei was finally relieved. He gave the sealed Quiriana's clone power to Ben Hong. Ben Hong's soul power was severely damaged this time. It was almost on the verge of collapse. After devouring Quiriana's power, she fell into a deep sleep. When Chinrei's consciousness entered the supersystem, he found that the appearance of the Galaxy Divinity Temple had changed a lot. The entire Galaxy Divinity Temple was like a trunk with many arms open. The central, trunk, part was the main hall of the Galaxy Divinity Temple. It had become a huge and magnificent palace. It was not an empty main hall like before, but there were all kinds of side halls, ponds, gardens, and other facilities. Those gardens were not planted with ordinary flowers and trees, but special plants with various auras. The original Galaxy Garden was built in the Galaxy Divinity Temple as a huge main garden. The star-ceiling platform, Tower of Faith, training ground, and other buildings were distributed on the extended arms. The appearance had also changed accordingly. Title: Polaris Emperor Evolution Level, 6 stars Comprehensive Strength Assessment, SSS plus Physique, SSS plus Power, SSS plus Spirit, SSS plus Speed, SSS plus Aura Value 4. 51 million cubes Faith Crystal, 370,000 cubes Polaris Rank, Purple Star. It was still a 6-star evolution, but the advancement was only in level, from Crimson Pole Star Emperor to Purple Pole Star Emperor. The unit of spiritual energy value and faith crystals became cubes, which should be a rather large statistical unit. Chenrui was most concerned about the newly acquired abilities. In the skill light screen on the throne, many of the original skills in the branches of the skill tree had disappeared. Only the crown of some skills appeared. This phenomenon also appeared when he was promoted to Crimson Pole Star Emperor. This meant that those abilities had been completely integrated into the body. There were no previous restrictions such as time and frequency. As long as the strength was enough, he could use them as he wished. Not only the skill tree, but also some other data things had disappeared. Just as Chenrui felt, the super system was becoming less and less like a digital system. Instead, it was more like a digital foundation that guided the controller step by step to get rid of the restrictions of fixed data and enter a higher and more free level. As his strength level increased, this feeling became clearer and clearer. It was like the evolution of life. There was no doubt that Purple Pole Star Transformation was the most powerful skill of Purple Pole Star Emperor. Purple Pole Star Emperor could already exert a power similar to power. In addition to the original Polaris Storm, Star Wing Protection, and True Red Annihilation, there were 4 powers that Chenrui performed before. These 4 powers were not granted by the super system but realized by Chenrui himself. The super system only provided a platform. This was the biggest difference from the previous evolution level. Swift as the wind, gentle as a forest, aggressive like fire, immovable like a mountain. Speed, time, attack, defense. These 4 powers came from Sun Tzu's Art of War. The original text was swift as the wind, gentle as a forest, aggressive like fire, immovable like a mountain, elusive like a shadow, and moving like thunder. Chenrui had seen the power of Satan, Sariel, Michael, Raphael, and even Quiliana and Sasbach. In addition, he had personally experienced the power of Ben Hong. Combining the power he possessed and the Chinese civilization he felt in his previous life, he finally had a flash of inspiration and created these 4 powers. In addition to Purple Pole Star Transformation, an active skill was added. Mirror Form. In the mirror form, the whole body can reflect or refract all the enemy's attacks for 10 seconds. Can be used once an hour. This skill was obviously a defensive skill. It was somewhat similar to Star Diversion, but the effect was more powerful. In the mirror form state, the whole body could reflect the enemy's attacks. Although there were no new attack skills in the other regular states, with Chenrui's current strength, he had completely mastered the power of the law. He could freely perform various moves without the mode of the super system. He could even improve the skills of the super system, such as the 7-star explosion, improved from Aurora Shot. Just as Chenrui planned to continue to study the new functions after the advancement of the super system, he suddenly felt something. As soon as his mind moved, a familiar figure had appeared in front of him. A mature and attractive figure, a perfect appearance, and blue eyes as deep as the sea. The deep sadness contained in those eyes had disappeared, and they looked calm and peaceful. Seeing her, Chinrui's heart did not have that kind of strong palpitation. If there was anything, it was just a faint warmth. "Is that you? Little Arthur?" The gentle voice sounded. "No, I should call you Arthur." Chapter 1031. Chinrui stood up from the throne and looked at Veronica in front of him. He was surprised. When Veronica broke free from Quiriana's control, her soul was almost destroyed. Although her soul fragments were kept in the Holy Grail for nourishment, and a large amount of light power was sacrificed to accelerate the recovery, she only managed to recover a part of it. In this case, even if she recovered, she might not be able to fully recover her previous consciousness. However, judging from Veronica's state now, she has clearly fully recovered. Is it the effect of the creation power? Or is it caused by the mysterious power produced by the qualitative change of the supersystem? What made Chinrui even more puzzled was that most outsiders who entered the supersystem would be rejected without exception, and they couldn't appear in this Galaxy Divinity Temple. Even Starsealers like Rala and Isabella could only move in the Starsealer platform. Veronica actually appeared in this hall unscathed and was not attacked at all. Chinrui looked at Veronica, and the relevant information automatically appeared in his mind. Shrine Attendant can be Sealer. Soul Strength, SS plus characteristics. Heart Attendant, maintain absolute awe of the controller, and put an end to all disobedience. Can be cancelled or granted. Heart Sacrifice. The controller can sacrifice or obliterate the attendant. Permission, none, can be cancelled or granted. Ability, none, can be cancelled or granted. Shrine Attendant? This new term made Chinrui stunned. No wonder Veronica is not rejected. It turns out that she has become the attendant of the Galaxy Divinity Temple? Arthur? Veronica's voice interrupted Chinrui's contemplation. I should not be the original little Arthur or Arthur. Chinrui did not intend to continue to appear in front of her as Arthur. You can call me Chinrui. Don't you need to add the title of Your Highness or Your Majesty after your name? From your body, I feel an irresistible majesty that I need to look up to, just like God. If it wasn't for the special, it should be classified as attachment or dependence in my soul, I would have already prostrated myself before you and worshipped you. Chinrui knew that it was caused by the heart attendant's characteristic. With a thought, he cancelled the characteristic. Sure enough, Veronica's expression relaxed and she smiled. It's much better now. Actually, the name isn't important anymore. I only remember who pulled me out of the abyss with both hands. Whether he is Arthur or the current Chinrui. Chinrui nodded and didn't dwell on this topic. Can you tell me where I am right now? You can think of this place as a world formed by the ancient inheritance that I've received. It's so beautiful here, Veronica exclaimed as she looked at the vast galaxy outside the palace. Veronica, I'm sorry. Why do you say that? On the Tower of Faith, in addition to the benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, faith, loyalty, filial piety, integrity, and courage that Chinrui had originally entered, there were also treachery, rebellion, slipperiness, theft, stupidity, betrayal, etc. There was no doubt that the latter was Shura's masterpiece back then. However, Chinrui had now seen it quite thoroughly. In the universe, light and darkness coexisted like creation and destruction. Even people had undeniable two sides. Human nature was good, and human nature was evil. The key lay in the choice and persistence of the heart. Chinrui couldn't erase those free human nature. No matter what they had experienced, as long as there was light and hope in their hearts, even if they fell into hell like Veronica, there would still be a day to get out. In the options for pillars of faith, in addition to the total number, it also showed the ineffective pillars of faith with the prompt. You can give the shrine attendant oracle authority to control or rebuild. There were several levels of oracle authority. Chinrui looked at Veronica and tried to give her the highest oracle authority. Veronica's body shook, and a lot of information suddenly appeared in her mind. Little Arthur. And Chinrui. Veronica showed a moving smile. You seem to have given me a strange ability. If you don't mind, I would like to try it now. Chenrei shrugged. As you wish, beautiful lady. Actually, this is what I want too. Veronica walked towards the Tower of Faith and looked at the huge tower. Suddenly, her body turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the tower. As the supreme controller of the entire Galaxy Divinity Temple, Chenrei could naturally clearly grasp her movements. He felt that Veronica had merged with the Tower of Faith at this moment. Then she seemed to separate a bit of her consciousness and threw it into the vast sea of stars. After a while, the Tower of Faith flashed, and Veronica appeared in front of him again. Her beautiful blue eyes flashed with surprise, and her tone was a little excited. I used the wrong word just now. It's not strange, but wonderful. There are too many. It's simply incredible and wonderful. I actually entered a star and saw many people. I can feel all kinds of emotions, all kinds of events, all kinds of beliefs. It's simply a whole new world. There is a pillar of faith there that was abandoned because of the war. If possible, I want to go to that place again and try to bring more confidence and courage to the people there and rebuild the shattered faith. Entering those planets with faith in the Galaxy Divinity. Is this the ability of an oracle? Chenrei seemed to have understood something. Not only that, I also have some other abilities. In addition to protecting myself, I can also easily do some things I want to do there. By the way, the new consciousness I just obtained in my brain tells me that you can build a star god statue and give this statue the corresponding faith authority. This kind of statue will be projected to all the lands of faith and become the center of that type of pillar of faith. This way, not only can you better stabilize and maintain the faith in this world, but you can also summon the power of a war projection to fight with you. Star God statue? War projection? Chenrei nodded. It should be a new ability after advancing to the Purple Polaris Emperor. Oracle statue. Veronica's expression was a little strange. This reminds me of gods? In this world of inheritance, you are the supreme god, and then the gods under you, controlling the life and faith of the entire world. Tell me, what exactly are you? I'm not a god. I'm just an ordinary human who happened to obtain some special inheritance. Chenrei shook his head. You can go wherever you want now. If you're tired, go back to your residence and rest. Veronica blinked and looked at him. Do you have something to do? Or should I say, you're not prepared for my appearance? I'm sorry. Chenrei could only smile bitterly in the face of women's sensitivity. I'll try to find time to accompany you in the future. Don't say sorry, not in the future. Just like how I'll never say thank you to you again. Veronica smiled slightly and said, This is my only request. Chenrei looked at the gentle eyes that seemed to contain everything and suddenly came to a realization. No wonder little Arthur was so attached and obsessed. Even if his will dissipated, there was still an obsession for these eyes. For some reason, he inexplicably envied little Arthur, who met this woman for the first time. I promise you. Veronica looked at him deeply. Her body moved slightly and she disappeared from the Tower of Faith. Chapter 1032. 5 days had passed. Tomorrow was the day of the Holy Son's canonization ceremony. All the invited guests had arrived at White Cliff. Rex the Great of the Long Huang Empire was among them, as well as his abandoned fiancée, the Pearl Princess Rambus of the Rio Empire. Rambus came with Emperor Covalanti. Generally speaking, the king would bring the crown prince or the children who were most likely to become the heir. Firstly, it was to cultivate connections by witnessing this ceremony. Secondly, it was also a courtesy to show respect for the church. Victor and the other princes did not accompany them. In a sense, this had already shown Emperor Covalanti's preference in choosing the heir to the throne. As the victim, Princess Rambus had not expressed any opinion on Arthur's upcoming canonization as the Holy Son after she was rejected for marriage and made a vow of celibacy. She seemed quite silent. Of course, the human world was not like the demon realm. With the emergence of magic newspapers and magic television, the new profession of reporter was born. For the time being, the reporters of the demon realm were just serious news workers. It was believed that with the gradual strengthening of the entertainment of newspapers and television, a series of gossip, entertainment reporters with the characteristics of the demon realm would be born accordingly. Rex the Great arrived at White Cliff 2 days earlier than Covalanti. He also brought a princess. This princess was different from Rambus. She had nothing to do with the word heir, but her relationship with Arthur was closer than that of Rambus. Feyre, Roland, Arthur, was the younger sister of the same mother, the only younger sister. However, Rex the Great bringing Feyre here was obviously perfunctory about the so-called etiquette. As everyone knew, Arthur was pushed out of the Dragon Bright Empire by Rex the Great. Of course, Arthur was too dazzling, and as an emperor, it was inevitable that he would have some scruples. However, from another perspective, it also reflected that although Rex the Great had the ability to govern a country, he had no tolerance for others. After Arthur left the Long Huang Empire, he was recruited by the church immediately. They did not hesitate to throw out the Holy Son's position as a bargaining chip. According to the heavy news deliberately leaked by the church, this Holy Son was 100% going to become the next pope. On one side was the future emperor of the empire, and on the other side was the future pope of the Church of Light. Anyone could tell who was better with their eyes closed. For Rex the Great, who had abandoned his son and even severed ties with him for the sake of power, this news was tantamount to a slap in the face. No matter what, at the request of the church, Rex the Great participated in this ceremony as a special guest. After all, this was a grand ceremony for the future pope. As the monarch of the Holy Empire, even if it was just out of courtesy, he had to attend. If he came, it would be a slap in the face. If he didn't come, it would be even more embarrassing. However, it seemed that this time, Rex the Great intended to go all the way. As soon as he arrived, he did another ungentlemanly thing. It was said that Rex the Great met with the 3 heads of the sacred mountain in private, and claimed that the current Arthur was not his son. The soul that occupied Arthur's body was very likely another suspicious soul. Unfortunately, whether it was Fendy's or the other 2 patriarchs, none of them cared about this. Many people saw that when Rex the Great left the hall that day, his face was completely black. On the second day of this failed private meeting, no one knew who spread the relevant news. As a result, Rex the Great was naturally humiliated. Even the kings of those kingdoms could not help but look at him strangely. You have already severed ties with Arthur, why do you still insist on going all the way? Now that things have come to this point, you still want to slander him to prove that you are right? This was no longer a problem of being petty. To put it nicely, it was called bigotry. To put it bluntly, it was called idiocy. As a matter of fact, Chunrui had already confessed to Raphael about the fact that he had a brand new soul after receiving the inheritance of the ancient alchemy civilization. And Raphael's meaning was also very clear. What he wanted was the Holy Son, who could cast divine favor. As for whether Chunrui was Arthur or a prince, it did not matter at all. Now, no matter what, Chunrui was already the Holy Son. Rex the Great could only be regarded as a villain in vain. In this farcical story background, the canonization ceremony of the Holy Son of the Church of Light had begun. That day was an important day for the Church of Light and the entire human world. The monarchs of various empires and kingdoms in the human world had participated in this canonization ceremony that far exceeded the standard of the ordinary Holy Son. Even the elves, dwarves, and dragons had sent representatives to participate. The hill dwarves and the cave dwarves had merged into one. They sent Elder Aska while the forest dwarves sent the mechanic Grand Master, Bernard. In addition to the mechanic Grand Master, Finoa, the elves also had a female elf elder. It was said that when this elf elder named Shilanya appeared, she was immediately welcomed by the 8-winged angel, Camel. Obviously, she was a senior elder with an outstanding identity and strength. Since the cooperation with the church in magic firearms, magic games, and other fields, the relationship between the two parties that had always been rigid began to break. This time, sending Chilania and Finoa to participate in the ceremony was considered giving enough face. Similarly, the dragons who had a cooperative relationship with the church also showed their importance and sent a super elder. It was the representative specially appointed by the dragon emperor, Stanwell. Although Stanwell lost to Maria in the battle for the position of the Great Elder, he was beaten up by the son-in-law of the fairy dragon's Great Elder, and he lost all his wealth by disrupting the wedding. He had bad luck. However, Stanwell was a saint dragon after all, so he was still valued by the dragon emperor Palgoris. During this time, he was responsible for the foreign affairs of the dragons and the cooperation with other races. As the main person in charge of contact and cooperation with the church, it was reasonable for Stanwell to attend this ceremony. Stanwell bit the bullet and came this time. The Saint Dragon Great Elder was very clear in his heart. This so-called Arthur was simply Maria's perverted son-in-law, Richard. The word brother-in-law had become a nightmare that he couldn't get rid of. These self-righteous humans were all fooled by this guy. However, His Majesty the Dragon Emperor had issued an absolute gag order in the entire clan. He even made Stanwell swear the most vicious oath in front of him to keep it confidential. Therefore, Stanwell wouldn't leak any relevant information. Let those silly church fakes be cheated. By the way, there are also the 3 supreme angels. This damn Richard will never do anything that he isn't confident about. I'm waiting to watch a good show. In addition, there were also the 2 human mechanic Grand Masters, Chikyu and Farasini. The former witnessed the birth of Grand Master Arthur with his own eyes, so he appreciated it a lot. As for the latter, he had never interacted with Shenrui. It was said that he even expressed doubts about the title of the top human mechanic Grand Master on certain occasions. However, just after the elf Grand Master, Finoa, publicly expressed his admiration for Arthur's mechanics, Farasini's doubts also disappeared. Because regardless of skills, age, and qualifications, Finoa was recognized as the strongest mechanic Grand Master. Even Finoa appreciated Arthur, so much so Arthur definitely deserved his reputation. As for whether Farasini acknowledged the top Grand Master, in his heart, it was unknown. Holy Mountain. Peak of Holy Favor, Cloud Plateau. The sun was shining brightly, and there were no clouds in the sky. Under everyone's attention, the prince, Arthur, appeared in sight. Today, Arthur was wearing a white robe. The white robe was inlaid with exquisite silver edges, showing a simple yet elegant charm. Arthur was originally very handsome. With his blonde hair and white robe, his whole body was surrounded by a holy aura. Just from his appearance alone, he did indeed have the feeling of a dragon or phoenix among men. Rambus watched Arthur set foot on the red carpet leading to the holy brilliant platform. She thought to herself, no wonder Arthur promised her and used the public rejection of marriage in exchange for the Holy Grail. He even easily withdrew from the political stage of the Long Huang Empire. Rambus didn't think Arthur would be defeated so easily. It turns out that he has such a bigger stage and doesn't care about the ordinary throne at all. That secret deal had ended, and they didn't owe each other anything. In fact, Rambus even got the upper hand in terms of benefits. However, the two of them could be considered acquaintances. If they could maintain a friendly relationship, it would be quite beneficial for her to completely control the Ryo Empire in the future. Rex stared at the figure who didn't even look at him. His seemingly indifferent and hostile eyes were faintly flashing with inexplicable emotions. Fea's eyes, on the other hand, were filled with unconcealable admiration. Although she was told that the Holy Sun wasn't her brother, the girl felt that she did have such a brother in her heart. Especially after he returned, he took care of her more like a real brother instead of a royal brother. The elves and dwarves were relatively calmer. Putting aside the elder of the hill dwarves, the dwarf Grand Master Burnt, like Chilania and Finoa, was also an insider. He knew that something that might shock the entire Holy Mountain of Light would definitely happen today, so he was more interested in watching the show. The person who gloated the most was a representative of the dragons. Keep pretending, keep pretending. Under all kinds of gazes, Chenrui walked up to the holy glorious platform step by step. On the holy glorious platform, the three giants of the holy mountain of light were Pope Fendis, Patriarch Pusmer, and Saintess Eudora of the Patriarch. However, these three giants weren't the real highlight of the ceremony today. Even Arthur wasn't the real protagonist today. The protagonist should be Raphael, one of the three supreme angels of the God of Light. This powerful and honorable existence would come to this ceremony to confer the title on Arthur. Arthur had already walked up to the holy glorious platform. Fendi stood up and began to read out his speech. After reading out his speech, the ceremony officially began. However, Pope Fendis didn't immediately announce the conferment of Arthur. Instead, he introduced Arthur's achievements, including getting the recognition of the three holy relics, destroying the main altar of the heathen, and so on. Many of the guests felt that the usually concise Pope Fendi's speech was a little long today, and he didn't get to the main point. It seemed like he was delaying something? Gradually, Fendis couldn't delay any longer. He could only try his best to prolong the time of his speech. Because it was time for Raphael to show up. Raphael would announce Arthur as the Holy Sun. The Holy Sun would also transform 100 Templar Knights into light body types in front of all the guests. They would be baptized by Raphael and become the most devout believers. The problem was, until now, Lord Raphael still hadn't shown up. Fendis, who was trying his best to write, couldn't help but sweat beads on his forehead. Chapter 1033. Chenrui calmly looked at Fendis, who was giving a long speech on the stage. His hand, hidden in his white robe, silently drew some mysterious symbols. These traces would trigger some changes in the spirit gathering formation, which was what he had set up on the platform of holy brilliance. Ben Hong once said that the spirit gathering formation contained Raphael's own power and the great power of the holy mountain of light. It was almost flawless. The only chance was when the spirit gathering formation was fully activated and its power was at its weakest, which was during the canonization ceremony. Then, he could use the reverse runes to break the shackles. This was definitely not an easy task, nor could it be done in a short period of time. There was also a big problem. How could he do all this under Raphael's eyes? So, Raphael was not here today. This was, of course, another of Chenrui's arrangements. For Raphael, if there was anything more important than the canonization ceremony of the Holy Sun, it would be the Temple of Light. At this moment, Raphael was in front of the Temple of Light. In the inscription circle in front of him, he could vaguely see a purple figure. Raphael's face was full of shock and anger. Who was this mysterious person? What method did he use to pass through so many powerful defenses and break into the Temple of Light? If the defense circle of the Temple of Light had a special connection with the three angels, it was very likely that the Book of Creation had been stolen by this enemy. This was the entire Church of Light. No! It was the biggest reliance of the three angels to steal faith and enter the realm of gods. Last time, Ben Hong and his men broke into the Temple of Light and stole Michael's Order of Wind. Raphael was very dissatisfied with the leader of the three angels. He claimed to be the man closest to God, and in the holy mountain of light. Although he severely injured Ben Hong and had the Tower of Glory, he still managed to escape. No matter what, it was not justifiable. Now that Michael was in a deep sleep and Raphael was in control of the sacred mountain, some rascals broke into the divine temple again. The protective inscriptions that he and Michael had rearranged together on the way seemed to be useless. If anything were to happen to the Book of Creation, everything would be over. Therefore, Raphael, who was supposed to descend, to preside over the coronation ceremony, did not hesitate to appear at the Temple of Light on the peak of the holy mountain. He happened to see the figure glowing with purple light trying to open the enchantment in front of the Temple of Light. The speed and proficiency of the breaking of the enchantment shocked Raphael. From the moment he sensed the change to the moment he arrived at the temple, the enchantment had already been broken by nearly half. Courting death! Raphael yelled angrily. The purple figure did not look back. It was the characteristic of Raphael's body of light healing, which was comparable to Charlie's body of moon soul. It could be said to have extremely terrifying self-healing power and was almost immortal. Of course, even Dodo's true immortal body was not without limits. However, with Raphael's current strength, and the three supreme angels were closely related, it was difficult for anyone to force him into a desperate situation unless the abyss arrived, especially on the home ground of the holy mountain. Raphael attacked the mysterious man, and the attack was reflected back by the mysterious man. However, Raphael was unharmed. It seemed to be a tie, but in fact, this round of competition was equivalent to Raphael's loss. This made Raphael, who had always been arrogant, feel ashamed. The hand that held the long rod tightened, and the binding inscription turned into powder. As he was about to crush the intruder, he suddenly found that the enemy had disappeared. All the inscription circles nearby were in chaos. Obviously, the enemy did not leave, but he used some kind of hidden power to hide in the messed up array to prepare an ambush. Although the blow just now made Raphael angry, he also began to take this mysterious intruder seriously at the same time. What surprised Raphael the most was that this person could actually use the array he set up to confuse his own vision and hearing. This is no longer as simple as being proficient in ancient inscription. He must be very familiar with this forbidden place. It is obviously a conspiracy that he has been coveting for a long time. To be able to be so familiar with the Light Divinity Hall area under the eyes of the three angels, spy? A term suddenly appeared in Raphael's mind, but the most urgent task was to find the mysterious man as soon as possible. This hateful intruder's strength was limited, and killing him was no different from stepping on a mouse. But now this mouse was hiding in Raphael's home, and he had to first move all the furniture that could hide to find him. Raphael suppressed the anger in his heart, and the long rod drew mysterious symbols one after another. He calmly repaired and inspected the runic circles along the way, and at the same time, spread out his perception to search for the whereabouts of the enemy. Although this method of investigation was the slowest method, it was the most effective to deal with this guy whose methods and whereabouts were quite mysterious. At that time, the enemy would have nowhere to hide, and it would not be too late to choose to torture or annihilate him. Raphael patiently searched for the mysterious intruder in the Light Divinity Hall, and Pope Fendes, who had been waiting for Raphael's arrival at the cloud plateau of the Blessed Hall, could not delay any longer, because he really could not wait any longer. However, in front of so many important guests, the canonization ceremony could not be delayed, so after some consideration, Fendes decided to reverse the order of Raphael's canonization of the Holy Son and Arthur's conversion to a knight, so that he could wait for Raphael's arrival. When Fendes announced that Arthur was going to show the God of Light's blessing in front of everyone and turn 100 Templar knights into light body warriors, many guests started to whisper among themselves. Light body warriors could achieve twice the result with half the effort in cultivating the light power, and the effect of healing spells and light magic buffs would also be doubled. If they could improve further and become a body of light blessing, it was said that they could even become a holy disciple under the command of the three supreme angels and receive the blessing from the three angels. The light element was generally divided into two types, innate and acquired. For the innate type, only the royal families of the Holy Light City and the Holy Empire would be born with the corresponding bloodline. The Holy Empire was mainly influenced by the power of holy objects. For the acquired type, a special, divine power ceremony was conducted by Pope Fendes, and the ceremony was usually conducted under the 3 snow-dell-let holy trees on the snow peak platform of the god Seal Peak. The power of the holy tree was also a key. Now that Arthur could use the divine power on the platform of holy brilliance and convert 100 Templar knights at the same time, it was unbelievable. However, on this occasion, as the Pope, Fendes would not speak carelessly. Therefore Arthur should have a certain degree of confidence, which also proved that Arthur was the next Pope. The 100 Templar knights entered the platform in a neat formation, and stood under the platform. Fendes gave Chungray a look, and Chunrui understood and nodded slightly. He slowly walked towards the red circle on the platform of holy brilliance. The red circle had now been decorated into a small platform full of holy aura. Chunrui's hands, which were hidden in his white robe, were still moving quietly. Although he had practiced these movements thousands of times in his mind, this was related to the reversal of the entire spirit-gathering circle, and it was the key to saving Tiffany. Time was of the essence to him, so he did not dare to relax at all. Walking to the platform, Chunrui bowed slightly to the surrounding guests, and glanced at Rex the Great and Fei Air. Suddenly, a sparkling white crown appeared on his head. Many experienced guests had already recognized it. It was one of the 3 holy relics of light, the crown of thorns, which could use the legendary power of divine blessing. After the crown appeared, Chunrui's entire aura changed, and was filled with a holy aura. He took out his hands, which were hidden in his white robe, and in the light that was brewing in his hands, there were countless faintly discernible symbols that floated in the air, and disappeared in a flash, into the nearby space. Many people noticed that Arthur actually had the strength of a saint. It should be known that before this former prince's strength was at most a soldier. In just a few months, a soldier had become a saint. This could only be explained by divine blessing. Before these people could think about it, the surrounding aura of power had already changed under the guidance of Arthur's hand gesture, and a huge and vast aura quickly condensed. This kind of power was unimaginably huge, and it was obviously not Arthur's own power. Everyone thought that Chunrui was performing the hand gesture of the transformation ritual. Although they recognized that Arthur was performing the power of ancient runes, even the 8-winged angel Camel beside Chilanya did not care. Camel knew that this Reiki gathering circle was set up by Raphael himself, and Arthur was now the person that Raphael valued the most. These must be the mystic arts that Raphael personally taught him to activate the entire big circle to enhance the power of divine blessing. Only the Saintess Eudora faintly felt that something was wrong, because Arthur did not do these extra actions in the usual rehearsals. Although it might be related to Raphael, she didn't know why an ominous premonition in her heart was getting stronger and stronger. Chapter 1034. Under the attention of all the guests, the holy son, Arthur, wearing the crown of thorns and wearing a white robe, faced the 100 knights of the temple standing below the stage and made some mysterious gestures with his hands. Camel saw that the whole spirit-gathering circle was affected by the gestures and nodded secretly. This Arthur was indeed a human valued by Lord Raphael. He could even cause such a fluctuation in the big circle. It seemed that there should be no problem with the transformation ceremony of the temple knights this time. An actual pattern formed by energy appeared in the air, spreading around with Chunrui as the center. The crown of thorns above his head glowed with a strong white light. Just when Fandris and the others thought they were about to activate the ritual of divine favor, the white light abruptly moved in the opposite direction and converged at a single point. A strange image appeared in the space where the light converged. It was a weird, huge tree. What attracted people's attention was that there was a human body inlaid in the tree. It was a delicate woman. Her hands and feet had been merged with the tree, and countless roots extended out and spread in the void. This strange scene caused everyone to be shocked. What was this? A special program of the transformation ceremony? The first one to react is the Saintess Eudora, who has always had an ominous premonition. She is shocked. She never expected that Arthur would actually lead to Tiffany's location at the crowning ceremony that everyone is paying attention to. How did he know Tiffany? What was he going to do? Arthur turned around and stepped on some kind of stairs in the void, walking step by step toward the tree that merged with the woman. He did not care about the temple knights below the stage at all. He did not even look at the others. Arthur! Fandis also did not expect such a change. He suddenly stood up and said, "What are you going to do?" Before Fandis said anything, Eudora had already appeared on the stage and wanted to stop Arthur. However, someone was faster than her and stood in front of her. It was a woman wearing a veil and a green dress. Eudora recognized that this woman was one of the guardians of Arthur. Her strength was only at the saint level. For her who had already entered the kingdomization stage, it was not worth mentioning at all. Moreover, this was the blessed peak, her home ground. However, this saint level actually managed to block her teleportation, and the subsequent attempts were easily blocked. That speed was simply unimaginable. Then Eudora becomes alert. She hears a familiar female voice. "Oh, isn't this Atlas? Why are you wearing women's clothing?" When Eudora hears the words, Atlas, her pupils suddenly shrink. She has only used this alias in one place. And this woman's voice, could it be impossible? Just when Eudora was shocked, a green light flashed in front of her. Pa! She felt a burning sensation on her left cheek. She had been slapped by the other party. Amidst his shock and anger, the figure approached him like a bolt of lightning. Pa! 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 Another 4 consecutive slaps made Eudora stagger a few steps before she could stand firm. Blood overflowed from the corner of her mouth, and even her face was swollen. Fortunately, there was a veil to cover it. "Atlas, why are you hurt? Let me help you take a look. Oh, you seem to be very angry? Is it because the Firebolt Heart's fire attribute power is still burning your vicious heart day and night? By the way, you seem to have another name, Andy? This should be a mother's name. Unfortunately, you don't deserve to be called mother at all." The mocking voice rang in her ears continuously, making Eudora feel even more horrified. It was as if all the secrets hidden in her heart for many years were all revealed by the other party. "It's you!" Hearing the words, "Fiery Lightning Heart," Eudora had completely confirmed the identity of the other party. She became more and more shocked. "You are actually still alive!" At that time, she swallowed the power of this woman and cast the seal of light annihilation. Logically speaking, this woman should have long been turned into ashes. Unexpectedly, she was still alive and appeared in front of her. "Do you want me to die?" "Unfortunately, I am still alive and well." Isabella added another sentence in her heart. "I will also live well in the future and be with him." Eudora gritted her teeth and said, "You actually dare to come here to die?" "I don't know if I will die or not, but you are dead," Isabella said lightly. "I won't kill you. I will feel dirty to slap you a few times, but this is what you deserve. Have you ever thought about why the seal of light annihilation is ineffective?" Eudora's mind turned sharply, and she suddenly reacted. "Snow Dowlette! Could it be that the Snow Dowlette incident at the beginning? Also, our strength is similar. Why is my speed so fast? Let me clarify first, I didn't use flash." Isabella's figure appeared behind Eudora like a ghost. When Eudora was about to turn her back, Isabella appeared in all directions again. Her hands were as fast as lightning. There was only one target, her face. Pa 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 pa. The continuous slaps made Eudora see stars. This was a real slap in the face, and it was in front of all the guests. "Ai!" Isabella shook her hand in disgust. "It seems that this pair of gloves will be thrown away in a while." Compared with the shame and anger, Eudora's heart was more trembling because she had already seen the boots on Isabella's feet. Although the appearance of the boots had changed a lot, Eudora, who once brought them from the demon realm to the human world, was more familiar with this pair of boots than anyone else. Breeze shadow boots. The seal of wind that was stolen not long ago actually returned to the hands of this demon realm woman. In that case, the incident that caused even Lord Michael to be enraged, Eudora finally understood why this witch would say that she was dead. Because if the 3 angels knew that the 2 major events that shocked the holy mountain, including this coronation ceremony, were all caused by her, her good days as a bishop and saintess would be over. While Eudora was reminiscing about the past, the other side was also very lively. Now, everyone knew that something was wrong. The Knights of Divinity had already surrounded Arthur, under the command of Fandis. However, before the knights could get close, they were thrown away by a strong force, including the Lord of Tsang Thunder Temple, Gamundan. The cause of all this was another woman with a veil, wearing a lavender robe. At the same time, the entire Holy Glory platform turned into powder under this force. Fandis and others were all shocked away, and everyone in the VIP seats was also repelled by a huge force to the distance. At this moment, the entire cloud plateau became empty. Except for the woman in purple, there was only Isabella who was fighting with Saintess Eudora, and Arthur, who was walking step by step towards the tree, in the void. Whether it was the battle between the woman in cyan and the Saintess, or the woman in purple smashing the Holy Glory platform, it all happened in the blink of an eye. Everyone was shocked. No one expected that such a sudden change would happen in the highly anticipated coronation ceremony of the Holy Son. Arthur! All of this was planned by him. His purpose was obvious. It was for the woman imprisoned in the tree. At this moment, many of the guests who usually thought of themselves as wise and far-sighted could not wrap their heads around it. The Arthur, who was envied by countless people, the Son of God, who had a bright future and was about to become the next pope, had actually given up on a woman of unknown origin. Rex the Great and Princess Rambus were also shocked. Rambus and Arthur had contact and trade. In her impression, Arthur was a guy who knew everything and was terrifyingly calm. She couldn't imagine that he would do such an incredibly stupid thing on such an occasion. Just for a woman? Was he crazy? Rex the Great's shock was different from that of Rambus. Breaking away from the father-son relationship and exposing the abnormality of Arthur's soul was actually a process that was written on a piece of paper a long time ago. From then on, Rex knew that his son was going to do something extremely dangerous, and it was probably related to the church. Before that, Arthur gave the most prosperous land of wealth to his father in a special way. Then, he used a series of conflicts to cut off his relationship with the entire Long Huang Empire. However, what Rex didn't expect was that the time and place for Arthur to take action was on this coronation ceremony, in the nest of the Church of Light, on the holy mountain of light where there were countless masters and even legendary angels, a spirit-gathering circle. The power that was guided by the woman in purple was extremely mysterious. Even demigods like Camel, Stanwil, and Chilania were not immune to that tremendous power. Camel could clearly see that this was not only the power of the woman, but also the power of the rune circle that Raphael had set up. Lord Raphael's spirit-gathering circle had actually become a weapon for the enemy to use. The teacher of Gamundan, the Radiant Sword Saint, Pari, who had already entered the kingdom, shouted and pounced toward the woman in purple. The brilliant sword light was like a waterfall. It was the strongest offensive move, Army Breaker. The woman just waved her hand lightly, and the sword light dimmed. Pari only felt an irresistible force flying toward him. In shock, he held his sword horizontally and performed his strongest defensive move, Flawless. Unfortunately, it was still useless. The irresistible force instantly penetrated the defense of Flawless. In the blink of an eye, Pari had already followed the footsteps of his disciple and fell in the distance. His giant sword was full of cracks, and he had completely lost the ability to fight. Demigod! Stanwell's expression changed when he felt the level of that power. Of course, he knew that this woman in purple was Maria's daughter, Rala. However, the last time Rala was in Ryuzaku, she was only at the peak of the kingdom. Now, she had actually reached the level of a demigod. And it was a rather stable demigod's power, based on Rala's ability to fight against a demigod when she was at the peak of the kingdom. Now, even Stanwell himself might not be a match for Rala. Thinking of this, Saint Dragon could not help but shiver. Maria demigod. Stefan demigod. Rala demigod. O Dragon God, is there still any fucking justice in this world? Chapter 1035. After Pari, Rala easily knocked down several super strong men who rushed up. As one of the masters of the Holy Mountain of Light, Camel naturally couldn't tolerate Rala's impudence. The white robe on Camel's body instantly turned into silver armor, and 4 pairs of wings appeared on his back. With a sway of his body, he had already passed through the barrier formed by the inscriptions, and appeared in the sky above Rala. With a wave of his hand, an overwhelming golden light pressed down. The magic wand, secret shadow, in Miss Long's hand drew a circle, and the golden light seemed to be erased by countless invisible hands. It quickly dimmed and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. This blow seemed to be evenly matched, but Camel had already tested the real level of his opponent's power. Although this woman's means were strange and unpredictable, her strength should not be at the middle stage of demigod. There was a big gap between her and Camel, who was at the peak of demigod. Camel couldn't help but show contempt. He punched out with both fists, and countless strong fist forces like light pillars shrouded Rala. A translucent light shield appeared around Rala's body. This light shield seemed to be very slippery. When the straight light pillars approached, they were twisted into arcs and slid away. This was not a simple force reduction, but the kingdom power that contained the rule. After a round of fierce attacks, the nearby ground that was protected by the power of runes had crisscrossed cracks, and Rala and the light shield was still safe and sound. However, it was obvious that she had been suppressed. Because Rala had activated the space isolation power of the spirit gathering circle, those light pillars that hit the air did not affect the battle between Isabella and Eudora, nor did it affect Shinrei. Shinrei had already walked in front of Tiffany. Under the power of reverse runes that he had activated, those roots that had drained her vitality poured back their power. Tiffany's pale skin began to recover a little bit, and her vitality was recovering rapidly. However, her half-opened eyes were still dim, as if she had completely lost her soul. Tiffany! Shinrei's voice wasn't loud, but it reverberated throughout the spirit-gathering matrix and the ascending cloud plateau, penetrating into Tiffany's soul in a special way. When Eudora hears this, she can't help but tremble. Arthur really comes for Tiffany. What was his relationship with that daughter from the Devil Realm and this woman from the Devil Realm? Just when she was distracted, she was slapped by Isabella again. Eudora was extremely shocked and angry. She had the blessing of faith from the entire blessed peak. Logically speaking, even if her enemies were stronger than her, they would be suppressed by the special power of faith, and their strength would be greatly reduced. However, Isabella's current level of strength was clearly similar to hers, yet she was clearly not affected by the strange power of the blessed peak. Instead, she was easily toying with her. The conversation between Eudora and Isabella was carried out secretly by compressing their voices. Eudora was not sure if Camel could hear the abnormality on her side, but she was becoming more and more determined in her mind. That was to kill him. Kill this woman. Kill Arthur. Although Isabella's speed was beyond imagination, the real reason why Isabella kept humiliating her instead of killing her was the powerful protection of the blessed peak. Eudora seemed to be resisting, but in fact, she was accumulating a killing move. Holy body breaking evil. This was a unique skill of the Patriarch of the blessed peak. She could use her body as a medium to condense the power of faith to launch the strongest blow. After this blow, Eudora's body would fall into an extremely weak state, but she had absolute confidence to kill Isabella on the spot with this move, and then kill Arthur. Completely bury all the secrets. Now the only thing she needed was time to prepare. Tiffany! It was already the third time. In the dead gray eyes, her eyes regained some focus and fell on Shinrei's face, staring at him blankly. The cute and innocent girl he first met in the bloody evil market, and the persistent and strong girl in the mysterious place appeared in Shinrei's mind, but none of the impressions overlapped with the Blackwood-like life in front of him. He felt pity, sighed, and stretched out his hand. Tiffany! Her eyes were still stagnant, as if she had lost the ability to change because she had been exhausted for too long. At this moment, a little bloody light appeared in her outstretched palm, which made her dull eyes move slowly as if they were attracted by some force. When his gaze fell on that speck of light, his pupils trembled violently. It was a black ring, emitting a strong light. Come with me. This voice, this sentence, his lips moved, but he didn't have the strength to speak. Only his originally dry eyes suddenly welled up with a bit of sparkling water. Relax all your mind and accept the power that I guide. Then, a warm power flowed into her body, and the cold haze that shrouded her soul began to dissipate. The roots that bound her were annihilated one after another, and the main trunk that was embedded in her body was also peeling off bit by bit. Tiffany was the eye of the formation, of the whole formation. With this change, Camel felt that the whole spirit-gathering formation began to tremble, and it was faintly on the verge of collapse. He couldn't help but be shocked. He put away the idea of capturing Rala alive, and a silver spear appeared in his hand. Spear of Judgment. This was Camel's most powerful artifact. Although the purple dress woman's defense law was quite ingenious, containing the combination of 6 elements, he was confident that the Spear of Judgment could penetrate the defensive force field and nail the woman to the ground. The Judgment Spear glowed with an intense light, as dazzling as the sun. Just as Camel was about to throw out a sure-kill attack, he suddenly saw the purple-clothed woman raise her head. The 8-winged angel only felt a strange gaze piercing through him, as if it had some kind of special magic that attracted his gaze. In the instant that their eyes met, Camel could clearly see that the pair of purple eyes were spinning with 6-colored light. The spinning colorful light had a special power, as if it wanted to attract all the souls. Although Camel wasn't good at mental attacks, he was a veteran after all. Naturally, he wouldn't be fooled by this little trick. The Spear of Judgment shone brightly, and he had already broken free from this illusory power. However, at this moment, he was alarmed. He saw 6 more rays of light in the surrounding space, just like the anomaly in the purple dress woman's eyes. The 6 rays of light rotated at high speed, intertwined in an instant, and quickly fused into a transparent colorless light. Elemental Fury. The elf Chilania in the distance narrowed her long and narrow eyes slightly. Previously in the illusory forest, she had personally experienced this killer move of Rala. Now the power of this move was far greater than before. Even if she was in her peak state, she wasn't sure if she could take it head-on. Her father, Alyssier, once said that the crown of the elemental goddess and Rala had chosen each other. If she was really the one chosen by that thing, then the fairy dragon's path was just the beginning. It was indeed worth waiting to see. Camel, who was shrouded by the elemental fury, felt that he was completely locked on. Relying on his strength, he simply didn't dodge. He shouted loudly, and the Spear of Judgment in his hand shot out. The spear drew a straight beam of light in the air. The distorted space caused by the inscription array along the way was easily cut open by the invincible sharpness. In the blink of an eye, it had already penetrated the protective barrier. The moment the Spear of Judgment flew out, the completely fused colorless light paused for a moment, and then it turned into nothingness and spread out. At this moment, the entire spirit-gathering formation trembled. The space around the seemingly gentle light was annihilated and collapsed, and it was almost erased into a vacuum that couldn't accommodate anything. Although there was the isolation power of the spirit-gathering formation, and under the command of Fandis, all the nearby protective formations had been activated, but the guests in the distance still felt the great power, and they were all moved. The laymen just watched the show, while the experts saw the artistry. Even the national-level powerhouses might not be able to see the mystery of the battle between Rala and Camel. Only the demigod powerhouses could really understand it. Stanwell's face had already become quite ugly. Previously, he was still thinking that he might not be a match for Rala. Now that he saw this scene, had become certain, not to mention the fact that Rala could fight against Camel, who was at the peak of the demigod stage. The power of this blow alone was enough to kill him more than 10 times. She was indeed the #1 genius of the dragons. However, Rala wasn't in a good situation either. Camel's judgment spear had directly penetrated her protective shield. Although the bodies of the dragons were strong, the fairy dragons were the weakest. Under Camel's full power, she might not be able to survive. This time, Stanwell's heart was in his throat again. Although he had a grudge against Maria, it was still an internal conflict of the dragons. Rala could be said to be the greatest hope of the dragons in the future. If something really happened to her, he wouldn't be able to explain it to the Dragon Emperor, who had stood by and watched. The vacuum in the air was quickly filled up by the surrounding space and disappeared, revealing Camel's figure. The originally heroic eight-winged angel was now in a sorry state. His silver feathers were scattered everywhere, and there were a few obvious distortions on his silver armor. There was also a bloodstain on his face, and his expression was one of shock and anger. The woman who hadn't reached the intermediate stage of demigod actually launched such a powerful blow that was beyond his expectations. It even caused a change in the space. If it weren't for his two great talents of defense and space, he would have suffered a big loss. However, the opponent was also hit by the judgment spear. She was either dead or injured. Camel's gaze fell on the ground below. He saw a silver-white spear nailed there. With it as the center, there were spider-web-like cracks around it. The cracks were dozens of meters in diameter. However, he didn't see the corpse of the woman in purple. There were no blood stains or other traces. It was as if she disappeared into thin air. At this time, on the other side of the field, Eudora, who had been accumulating power for a long time, finally erupted. She suddenly turned into a body of light, and countless powerful white lights burst out like thousands of sharp swords. They instantly penetrated Isabella's body. Unexpectedly, Isabella didn't scream as expected. She just trembled slightly, and her body gradually dimmed. Then, she disappeared as if she was a phantom. Camel, who witnessed this scene, finally understood that his judgment spear's blow was actually futile. He couldn't help but be furious. He looked at the only enemy, who was still in the field, the guy who fooled everyone, Arthur. Chapter 1036. Shenrui was instilling star power to help Tiffany get rid of the last shackles of the spirit-gathering circle. He had been sensing the battle situation of Rala and Isabella, but he didn't intervene or rescue them. As Camel and Eudora saw, after Rala and Isabella were defeated, they turned into phantoms and disappeared. They didn't suffer any real damage. This was warp projection, one of the new functions of the star sealing platform. When he was Crimson Pole Star Emperor, after the link target accepted the star sealing, the corresponding statue would appear in the star sealing platform. The person could be integrated into the star sealing platform and carried through space travel like this Stargate. The person could also be put into the star sealing platform in times of danger to avoid being hurt and recover from injuries. After advancing to Purple Pole Star Emperor, the function of the star sealing platform was greatly enhanced. The original fusion time was extended from 3 hours to 3 days. It could also build a statue of Star God on the basis of the statue. This kind of statue of Star God could project its projection to certain places of faith in a large galaxy, become the core of the pillar of faith, and receive the corresponding power of faith. It was equivalent to the local God. The benefits brought by this were very huge. In addition to stabilizing and maintaining the power of faith of the galaxy, it also had a strong cleansing and amplification effect for the person who was sealed as God. Not only that, it could also summon the war projection of the statue of Star God to fight in the fusion state. War projection, as the name suggested, was a real projection of the battle. It could restore 100% of the person's strength, and there were special bonuses. Death wouldn't cause any damage to the person, but it would take 7 days for a new war projection to be condensed. In other words, now Isabella and Rala were only integrated into the statue of Star God on the star sealing platform, and they didn't suffer any damage. Despite all kinds of auxiliary powers, there was indeed a big gap between Rala and Camel, who was at the peak of demigod. The main purpose was to try it out. It was already quite a good result to use elemental fury to make Camel suffer a loss. As for Eudora, who Isabella was facing, it was quite difficult for Isabella to kill her due to the home ground of Blessed Peak. Besides, Isabella had her own plan and didn't want to kill her directly. Looking at Isabella's condition, Stanwell, who had been worried all this while, finally heaved a sigh of relief. He could not help but feel a little resentful in his heart. This is obviously the other daughter that Maria has acknowledged. Rala is probably not dead, and she even has the powerful strength to fight against a peak demigod. Lord Dragon Emperor should be very happy to hear this good news. However, I'll have to take a detour when I see Maria's family in the future. Under everyone's gaze, the war projections of Isabella and Rala disappeared, and only Arthur and Tiffany, the protagonists, were left in the field of the spirit-gathering magic circle. Eudora exuded a strong light all over her body and flew to the two first. Everyone's pursuit was different. Some pursued strength, some pursued power, and some pursued freedom. Eudora knew that her talent in personal ability enhancement was limited. Even if she worked harder than others, she might not be able to stand out. Therefore, her early position was to be a ruler. Over the past 100 years, she had used unscrupulous means to eliminate dissidents. Finally, she had gained Raphael's recognition and ascended to the throne of the Patriarch of the Peak of Divine Favor. She had been coveting the throne of the Pope all the time. Unfortunately, the appearance of Arthur shattered Eudora's dream, and she was forced to embark on the path of power. However, such a great change happened at the conferring ceremony of the Son of God. For Eudora, it was tantamount to coming back from a dead end. It was equal to an unexpected opportunity. But before that, she had to get rid of Arthur, first because Arthur was likely to know all her secrets, including the previous Snow Dowlet incidents, and that Isabella. She must find and kill her afterward. She couldn't stay in this world in any case. Eudora's eyes flashed with killing intent. With the help of holy body destroying evil that had not dissipated, she turned into an arc and rushed to Chenrui. This blow not only wanted to kill Chenrui but also Tiffany. Eudora didn't admit that she was cold-blooded in her heart. She only blamed her daughter for being born in this world and appearing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Instead of suffering like this, it was better to be completely free. She was going to free herself. Tiffany's body glowed with sparkling light. With the help of Chenrui, her whole body had been freed from the confinement of the tree. Only some slender roots were left. It was the last moment. She was almost able to completely get rid of Raphael's strange power and the bondage of the entire Reiki gathering circle. The white light approached in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, Chenrui turned his head and glanced at it. Chenrui didn't turn his head fast. According to the speed of the white light, it should have hit him long ago. But somehow, when he turned his head, the swift white light had just arrived. Eudora only felt that a strange coercion wrapped around her, like countless sharp awls, which shattered the shell of the entire holy peak and nailed directly into her soul. An indescribable fear and pain instantly spread all over her body. In the scream, the white light of holy body destroying evil collapsed. She was shot backward until she broke a pillar of the cloud plateau and fell to the ground. Her bones seemed to be broken. She couldn't move, and her face was full of disbelief and horror. This deterrence. This power. It was like facing Lord Camel. Was this still the saint level, Arthur? The last trace of root entangling Tiffany finally peeled off. Tiffany's body fell forward and was gently caught by Chenrui. Camel opened his palm, and the spear of judgment that was nailed to the ground appeared in his hand in the blink of an eye. The next second, the spear of judgment flew straight to Chenrui like a meteor, leaving a silver death light track in the air. Sleep. When you wake up from this nightmare, everything will be better. This voice seemed to have some special power. Tiffany completely relaxed and slowly closed her eyes. The silver line of death behind him was approaching in an instant, but Chenrui still didn't look back. Camel raised his eyebrows. Just now, Arthur forced Eudora back. Although it was just a glimpse, he had clearly felt that level of power. He didn't dare to underestimate it. He threw such a powerful spear of judgment, but unexpectedly it was ignored by the opponent. Daring to ignore Camel's power, he would definitely pay a heavy price. At this moment, Camel suddenly felt that everything had slowed down. His breathing, the operation of power, the fluctuation of space, including the flying spear of judgment, all inexplicably slowed down. Except for the voice. This strange feeling seems to be the dislocation of time? It also appeared when Eudora launched an attack before, but it was not so powerful and obvious. Camel suddenly thought of a very rare rule power, and he couldn't help but be shocked. In the blink of an eye, the slow returned to normal, as if everything just now was just an illusion. However, the circle eye Tiffany of the spirit gathering circle had disappeared. The entire spirit gathering circle began to shake and was about to collapse completely. In the blink of an eye, the lightning-like silver light suddenly stopped, changed back to the shape of a spear, and was tightly held by a hand. At some point, Chenrui had turned around and caught this spear. The spear was shining with white light, trembling slightly and making a sound, but it couldn't move forward at all. Camel's pupils shrank. He had activated the kingdom's power 3 times in a row, trying to detonate the powerful rule power of Judgment's spear, but all of them were actually suppressed by the opponent. This was not the kind of clever skill that the woman in purple used before, but pure power. Arthur actually suppressed him, an 8-winged angel at the peak of demigod, with absolute power, and it was on this holy mountain of light. Camel waved his hand, and Chenrui felt that his palm was empty. The spear of judgment had disappeared and returned to Camel's hand. Camel spread his 8 wings and appeared in front of Chenrui. His whole body instantly turned into countless shadows, holding spears, and attacked Chenrui from all directions. Each shadow's attack move and position were different, but they all attacked the enemy's vital parts. Countless shadows formed a perfect attack formation, combined with the power of Judgment's spear, and interweaved into a sharp light net, sealing all the space for Chenrui to parry or dodge. This move was called Absolute Slaughter, and it was a big move that Camel performed by combining the power of the demigod kingdom with the talent of weapon proficiency. It had the rules of no escape and no parry, and could only accept it. Chenrui hugged the air and drew 2 half-arcs, and circles of ripple-like power spread out, containing specks of starlight. Wherever the water ripples passed, the countless silhouettes immediately became confused. It was as if a thesis that was supposed to be extremely logical had suddenly been pointed out with all kinds of loopholes. Suddenly, the thesis seemed to be incoherent and contradictory. The people in the distance only saw in the ripples, the countless interweaving shadows eliminated each other, and finally, with a bang, they all turned into nothingness. Then, everyone's vision became blurry, as if there were 2 shadows moving at high speed, accompanied by extremely fast vibrations, and the nearby space kept shattering and distorting, terrifying changes. The weaker ones only watched for a while before they felt dizzy, and some even fainted on the spot. The blurry space became clear again, and it was fixed on an image. In midair, the 8-winged angel Camel's face was clasped by a hand. In the next second, everyone's eyes were involuntarily attracted to the bottom. There was the next fixed image. Camel's head was pressed down, and his body was pressed into the ground. The entire ascending cloud plateau was shaking, and Camel's body was deeply buried in the hard boundary ground, and under the powerful pressure of the hand on his head, he was still going deeper and deeper. The nearby ground couldn't withstand such pressure, and it started to crack. Under the powerful force field, it was as if gravity had broken free, and the gravel kept floating vertically in the air. A huge pit appeared in everyone's vision, as if some terrifying giant meteorite had crashed into the ground. Everything was because of that hand. It was Arthur's hand. Even the spectators who couldn't understand the battle between the 2 demigods or the profound mysteries of the laws understood the situation in front of them, and they were all shocked. The 8-winged angel Camel, who was said to be the strongest demigod and second only to the 3 supreme angels, was actually being suppressed by Arthur, who only had the strength of a warrior. Stanwell felt his eyelids twitch. This was a complete suppression. The 8-winged angel Camel was actually unable to retaliate against that. Arthur, no, Maria's son-in-law, Richard. Was this that fellow's true strength? Back in Ryuzaku, if this fellow had used even 1% of this strength, there probably wouldn't have been anything left of him. Stanwell swallowed with difficulty. In any case, if he met a fierce family in the future, he would just have to lower his head. This fellow was so powerful, and his methods were so brilliant. If he took a liking to his younger sister, it wouldn't be impossible for him to become her brother-in-law. Chilanya didn't know that the dragon's elder at the side was becoming more and more confused. Looking at the situation in the arena, the surprise on the elf's beautiful face became more and more intense. She remembered very clearly that when she was in the illusory forest last time, although this human showed great strength, it was not to this extent yet. It seemed that in this short period of time, the strength of Zola and this human had made a significant leap. Among the guests, the most shocked was Rambus. She couldn't believe her eyes. This was the Arthur who, almost, became her fiancé. Looking at the figure that pressed Camel to the ground, Princess Mingzhu's eyes suddenly became a little misty. Just now, Arthur had said something to the imprisoned woman. "Follow me." If it was her who was imprisoned in a forbidden place like the Holy Mountain of Light, would he reach out to her regardless of everything in front of everyone? If he had said that to her, would she have followed him? No matter what the "if" was, the reality was that she had already made her choice. "My path." Princess Mingzhu said these 3 words softly to herself. Camel couldn't believe the reality in front of him. They were both at the peak of the demigod level, but regardless of the rules, kingdom, or the power of faith, he was actually completely suppressed by Arthur. It wasn't just strength, it was more of a spiritual aura. It was clearly only the strength of a demigod, but it seemed to be far above this level, making him simply unable to resist. This should be the feeling that he, the legendary angel, usually gave his enemies. Being suppressed and at an absolute disadvantage made Camel, who had always boasted that he was invincible as a demigod, feel shocked and angry. Just as he was about to use his last desperate move, he suddenly felt the pressure on his face lighten. The other party had already disappeared. Camel shouted angrily. His strength burst forth, and he struggled out of the shocking pit. He saw that the other party had already appeared in the distance, looking up at the sky. The other party didn't even look at him, as if he was just an insignificant ant. In the sky, the sun suddenly became dazzling, and waves of light with a special kind of pressure spread out. Under the illumination of this light, the scattered power of the spirit gathering array condensed again, as if it had transformed into some kind of prison, completely sealing off the entire cloud-ascending plateau. Camel's spirit was lifted. Lord Raphael was here. Chapter 1037. Shenrui did not act rashly. He just kept his head raised and looked up at the sun in the sky. Although he was looking up, his eyes were at the same level. The sun quickly transformed into a human figure, and the dazzling light gradually converged. The pair of pure white eyes shot out a sword-like glare, covering Shenrui. Raphael's mood at the moment could be described as furious. That ant-like Arthur actually deceived him. He deceived him, one of the supreme rulers of the entire Holy Mountain and even the entire human world. Raphael had previously been held up by a mysterious purple figure in the brilliant shrine. After a gradual investigation, he finally found the rat. He originally wanted to capture it alive and interrogate it, but the rat was extremely cunning. In the end, it actually self-detonated, leaving nothing behind. Judging from the mysterious intruder's familiarity with the ancient runes around the Temple of Light, it should have been a plot long ago, so there must be a traitor. Ever since Ben Hong had brought people to break into the Divine Hall to steal the Seal of Wind, almost all the inscription formations around the Holy Mountain of Light had been replaced. Michael and Raphael had worked together to rearrange them. Even pinnacle fake gods like Ben Hong and Satan could not easily break through the protection and reach the top of the Holy Mountain. However, this mysterious person could come directly outside the Temple of Light without a sound and use the inscription arrays of the temple to deal with him. It must be a traitor who appeared after the incident with Ben Hong. Recently, there was only one person who fit this condition, the Holy Son Arthur, whom Raphael had personally promoted. Therefore, after Raphael destroyed the purple intruder, he immediately rushed to the cloud plateau, just in time to see the scene of Arthur suppressing Camel, and all the doubts in his heart were finally solved. Arthur! Genial territory, main altar, holy mountain of light. Scenes of the past flashed through his mind, and Raphael's anger was about to explode in his chest. He had been fooled by this dam and for so long. His angry eyes carried a powerful soul power, shooting straight at him. Even if Arthur was a pinnacle demigod who could defeat Camel, he would completely collapse under this blow. However, in Raphael's eyes Arthur was still looking straight at his power, and there was a clear hint of mockery in his eyes. Suddenly, the golden eyes of Arthur shone brightly. It was purple and dazzling. Raphael seemed to see a huge purple star. The star seemed to have turned into the shape of an eye, carrying a vast and deep intent. His soul power seemed to have fallen into an endless void, disappearing into nothingness. Evil eye! This familiar feeling made Raphael blurt out. With a shift of his mind, he easily broke out of that profound state, and saw that Arthur, in front of him, had gone through an earth-shattering change. The gorgeous and elegant purple armor had 6 wings on its back, giving off a star-like brilliance. This brilliance spread all the way to the cloud plateau, which was illuminated by the sunlight, and was filled with purple starlight. Even the prison, formed by the spirit-gathering spell formation, could not block it. Even the weaker spectators in the distance could sense the boundless vastness and power radiating from the aura. This transformation made Rambus feel vaguely familiar, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Camel, who was the closest, felt his whole soul trembling under this power, as if it was about to break out of his body. He was extremely shocked. This power was definitely not that of a demigod. At the same time, Stanwell and Chilania were also shocked. False god. It was actually a false god. It's you! Raphael finally understood completely. The rat that sneaked into the brilliant shrine was Arthur. Everything was planned by him. The one that exploded in the brilliant shrine just now was just a doppelganger. Go to hell! Raphael knew that this enemy was extremely cunning. A silver long rod appeared in his hand, and he pointed at Chunrui. Although it was only one hit, the power was like a storm, turning into countless light marks, splashing toward Chunrui. In an instant, the entire space was divided into countless pieces, and the power was extremely shocking. This was not the brilliant shrine that stored the Book of Creation and was heavily protected, but the home field of the spirit-gathering spell formation. Raphael could exert his strongest power without any scruples. As Chunrui was trying to find a way to deal with it, he suddenly felt a tremor in his soul. At the same time, a warning sound came from the super system, Raphael's soul attack. Although the evil eye just now eliminated Raphael's attack, the strength this time was far stronger than the last time. It was an impact attack, and even the super system could not be immune to it. He felt dizzy and almost fainted. At this moment of hesitation, Chunrui had been completely swallowed by countless light marks. He only had time to faintly hear 3 words. Serene. Raphael, who succeeded in one move, frowned and looked in another direction. Chunrui, who should have been annihilated, appeared in that direction intact. Raphael felt some kind of rule power, and his white pupils suddenly shrank. Time! This was no longer an ordinary rule, but a real power. Just now, Arthur had used the power of time, allowing him to escape at the critical moment by changing the flow of time. From the ability of the evil eye to the current time, Raphael thought of another old opponent of the demon realm, Satan. This enemy was definitely not Satan. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to launch an attack as he wished. However, it was certain that the opponent had a similar time power as Satan, which was quite rare. Although Raphael was surprised, he did not relax. The long rod stopped, and his figure turned into countless shadows that spread around. In an instant, there were hundreds of him. Hundreds of Raphael flashed with bright and dazzling brilliance, turning into streams of light intertwining. Chunrui only felt a terrible pressure coming. The nearby space was completely frozen, and his body actually lost the ability to move or flash. Even the time rule could not be avoided. the high-speed streams of light overlapped into a magnificent and huge throne with thousands of lights behind it. The image of Raphael himself appeared on the throne. The silver long rod in his hand was like an emperor's scepter. He was surrounded by a strong power of faith like a certain god. As soon as this image appeared, even Chilanya and Stanwell, who were watching the battle, had the urge to worship. Many guests even directly knelt on the ground. Raphael's gaze was fixed on Chenrei below, and he chanted, "Ignorant people take pleasure in foolishness. Those who do not wake up are like dead animals. God has mercy on the world, but not the cunning villains." In Chenrei's deep analytical eyes, these gorgeous images were actually countless ancient runes that spread out. This was one of Raphael's unique skills. Seed of Sky Sacrifice. Chenrei had seen Raphael use this move to completely annihilate the projection of the Lord of Fear, Sasbak. Now that he was in this situation, he knew the horror of this power. This blow integrated Raphael's soul power. He felt that his entire soul was constantly splitting and disintegrating under the oppression and blockade of the throne. He was almost about to disappear. Raphael felt that the opponent's momentum was getting weaker and weaker under the power of the Seat of Sky Sacrifice. He sneered in his heart. As he was about to stop the silver long rod in his hand to end this short battle, he suddenly felt that his power was weakened. The long rod in his hand couldn't be stopped. Not only the long rod, but the momentum of the entire Seat of Sky Sacrifice was like a balloon that was filled with air being pierced by a sharp needle. It receded like a tide. At this moment, Chenrei had broken free from the soul blockade and appeared in the distant air. "Deprivation power!" Raphael immediately reacted and said in surprise, "Who are you?" "Charlie's evil pupil power, Satan's time rule, Ben Hong's deprivation power. This person is very likely to be related to the demon realm." "When did the demon realm have such a character? Since the Light Divinity Temple is just a cover, what is his real purpose of coming to the holy mountain of light?" "Who am I?" Chenrei glanced at Rex the Great in the distance and laughed. "Am I not Arthur?" This arrogant laughter was full of sarcasm and disdain. By now, everyone knew that this couldn't be the prince of the Long Huang Empire, Arthur, but an extremely powerful existence. A super powerhouse that could rival the three supreme angels, the strongest below the gods. It turned out that Rex the Great's previous snitch was actually true. It was just that everyone treated this truth as a joke at that time. Rex looked at Chenrei, who was laughing wildly, with flames of ignorance flashing in his eyes. Only he knew that this laughter was saying goodbye to him. Although in everyone's eyes, this extremely powerful existence couldn't be Rex's son, Rex knew in his heart that this was Arthur. Even if a considerable part of his memory was really integrated by some kind of inheritance, he was still Arthur, his son. He could feel it. Rex finally understood why Arthur risked several times to come to the palace alone without any guards. There was no need for guards at all, because this son was far more powerful than any guard. Now it seemed that some of his concerns and fears were so ridiculous. From the beginning, the Yellow Dragon wine, the magic game, and the entire Jinyao territory were gifts to him, his father. The path you want is the path you choose. Spread your wings and fly freely. I understand it now. It doesn't matter which Arthur you are. My son. Rex took a deep breath and hugged Fei Air behind him. The girl hid behind her father, her big eyes staring nervously at the battle in the field. No matter who you are, Raphael said coldly, there is only one path for you today, and that is death. Although Chenrei had displayed the strength of a pseudo-god, and his means were quite strange, he was still quite far away from the peak pseudo-god level. Generally speaking, the higher the level, the greater the gap between levels. As a peak pseudo-god, Raphael really didn't take Chenrei seriously. Not even giving me a chance to surrender? Chenrei's smile turned indifferent. You are also one of the so-called Supreme Three Angels, but you are much more petty than Michael. No wonder you are ranked below him. The last sentence contained a hint of provocation, causing Raphael to raise his eyebrows slightly, but he had already guessed it in his heart. The silver staff in his hand shook, and the surrounding space trembled due to a powerful force. So, humph. Where is Ben Hong? Don't worry. Chenrui shrugged. She is resting for the time being. You should be the one worrying. Raphael sneered, and the phantom of dozens of pillars appeared in the spirit-gathering formation, faintly emitting electric light, and the surrounding space changed in a special way. Your biggest mistake was not escaping before I arrived. Now, even if you want to leave, it is too late. Even with the help of Ben Hong's Tower of Glory, you may not be able to escape from the imprisonment of this formation. Ben Hong is indeed not here, and there is an important matter that you seem to be mistaken about. Chenrui smiled, and a strange light appeared in his eyes, and the light in the two pupils seemed to be completely opposite. But before I prove you wrong, I want to try out a new trick I came up with. The laughter suddenly overlapped, and in the blink of an eye, Chenrui's figure split into three, surrounding Raphael. The holy light robe's light-splitting technique? A faint premonition of danger arose in Raphael's heart, and he found it hard to believe that it was brought about by this rat in front of him. The three figures quickly shone with a red light. Invasion like fire. As he spoke, a pure and terrifying aura spread out. Origin of destruction. No, not only. Raphael finally moved. Chapter 1038. A purplish-red light burst out of the three figures at the same time and intertwined with each other. In an instant, all the figures became blurry, leaving only the purplish-red light that became increasingly intense. Raphael felt that the space that was originally confined by the spirit-gathering formation was separated by an indescribable power of law. Not only that, the shape of the space around him changed abruptly, and he found himself in a special triangular space. In the next second, circles of triangular shadows spread out, and the entire, triangular, space was shattered. Including space. It was not just pure destruction. There seemed to be a completely opposite attribute of destruction. The moment the two attributes were released, it was as if positive and negative had merged, erupting a power that was above the level of destruction. In front of everyone's eyes, Raphael's entire body shattered in an instant. Everyone was almost stunned, including Camel. The supreme guardian of the holy mountain of light, one of the three strongest angels under the god of light, Raphael, was killed by Arthur? Before they could get a clearer look, everything became blurry, as if even their line of sight had been shattered. The purple light disappeared after a few seconds, but the shattering continued. After a long time, the space that had become a complete vacuum gradually recovered. White light flickered in the air, as if the countless scattered lights had gathered together again, revealing an intact Raphael. This made everyone in the Church of Light heave a sigh of relief. Although his appearance was intact, judging from Raphael's solemn expression, the impact and shock he received just now was indeed no small matter. As expected of the body of healing light. Among all the opponents I've met, only Charlie's body of moon can match it. Chenrui's figure appeared in front of him, and he sighed. Charlie was once your opponent? Who exactly are you? What's your purpose in coming to the holy mountain? Raphael's eyes stared at Chenrui tightly. The original disdain had long faded. That move just now was really not simple. If it weren't for body of light healing, even if he was at the peak of pseudo-god, he would suffer a big loss. This enemy's methods were strange, and it was very likely that he came from the demon world. However, he just happened to have the rarest body of light in the human world. In short, he was an opponent that could not be underestimated. I'm an outsider. Chenrui shook his head. Coming here can be said to be a coincidence. Be it the book of creation or faith. Those are not what I want. It doesn't matter if you don't tell the truth. I'm sure you'll spill the beans soon enough. Raphael's wide eyes were burning with a vast power. That attack just now was actually borrowing the strange power of the holy light robe. Although it's not bad, it should have consumed a great deal of your strength. At the very least, you won't be able to use it again for a while. Now I have full confidence that I can take you down. I admit that the consumption of the Nirvana dimension far exceeded my expectations. Actually, this is the first time I've successfully used that move. I have to thank you for the pressure I felt from you. Shinrei spread his hands indifferently. I also admit that I'm not your opponent now, so let's save the more intense battle for the next time. Is this a place where you can come and go as you please? Stay. Raphael snorted coldly. His eyes shone with white light. He did not give his opponent a chance to continue speaking. The long rod in his hand merged into the void in the blink of an eye. Everyone watching the battle felt their hair stand on end. At the same time, the entire space was filled with countless chaotic green thunderbolts. They contained a strong power and surrounded Shinrei. Arthur had obtained the recognition of the three holy relics. The body of light was not fake. Light-type attacks would only yield half the result with twice the effort. Therefore, Raphael displayed the power of the wind. Just as the green thunderbolts were about to reach Arthur's body suddenly became transparent. The green thunderbolts passed through his body and were immediately reflected back. Mirror body! Raphael had suffered from this move in front of the Temple of Light. He hurriedly shook his hand and the long rod appeared again. It sealed in front of him and absorbed all the reflected green thunderbolts. At this moment, Raphael suddenly felt the fluctuations around him change. He saw two intertwining rays of light, one green and one red, appear beside him. Space immediately froze. Not only space, but even his soul was frozen by this strange power. The power of the thunderbolt was immediately unable to continue, and it came to a halt. Prohibition of wind and fire. This familiar power made Raphael shocked. He blurted out. The prohibition of wind and fire was a restraining artifact. It could restrain the soul and body of the enemy, making them lose the ability to fight. Back then, its owner was Raphael himself. Because in a certain battle, this artifact was damaged by a powerful enemy and split into two parts. One was the thought-binding chain that imprisoned the soul, and the other was the true flame shackles that restrained the body. Its power was greatly reduced, and it was only equivalent to a high-level quasi-artifact. Raphael tried many methods but was unable to repair it. Therefore, he bestowed one of the true flame shackles to Cyril, who had made a great contribution. The other was given to Arthur, who had sworn allegiance to him in the Jinyao territory. Now what Arthur used was no longer just the thought-binding chain, but the complete prohibition of wind and fire. Although its power was reduced compared to before, it was still extraordinary. Even if it was Raphael, if he was caught off guard, he would not be able to break free in a short period of time. Only by obtaining the true flame shackles could he form a complete artifact. Raphael suddenly reacted. So Cyril was killed by you. Hearing this, Lambis, who was in the distance, was shocked. Cyril. She had witnessed that battle with her own eyes. Not only that, she had personally tried to recruit that Richard, who had defeated the teachers and students of Starlight Academy. She still vaguely remembered that Richard had once said, "Maybe one day, your fiancé will suddenly appear and break off the engagement." This sentence had now become a reality. So at that time, this unparalleled expert who was contending against the legendary three angels was the Arthur. She knew, back in the City of Wizards, she had specially gone to find Arthur, and still had a chance. I want to ask you formally, are you really not willing to accept this marriage? I am not willing! From then on, the last shred of ties between the two had disappeared in a deal filled with benefits. There were many things that could not be turned back. She did not intend to turn back, but her heart felt like it was overturned, all kinds of feelings welling up in her. Is it that guy with 3 eyes? Shinrei did not deny it, but he made a more reasonable lie. At that time, my power had not recovered yet, so it took me a lot of effort. Raphael immediately thought of more things, and his eyes shone brightly. Snow Dowlet! These 3 words set off a storm in Eudora's heart in the distance. She finally understood. it turned out that this Arthur was Simon, who pretended to be Paul's follower and sneaked into the blessed peak to steal snow dowlet and phoenix egg. He was also the holy light guardian knight that she had conferred. Originally, Eudora hated Simon, who deceived her and stole the phoenix egg. She once swore to take revenge. Now, she did not dare to have any thoughts. That was a fake god who could compete with Sir Raphael. Chunrei laughed. Raphael is indeed worthy. You reacted a few seconds faster than I thought. However, now is not the time to discuss this. Thanks for your hospitality today, it is time for me to leave. Do you think this level of prohibition of wind and fire can trap me? Raphael said sternly. Before I break free, you'd better think about how to escape from the space blocked by this spirit-gathering circle. I'd like to see if you have the ability to crack the runes-changing circle I set up with the power of faith. Your ancient runes are really good, but unfortunately, I don't have time and interest in wasting time with you anymore. In fact, it is not difficult for me to leave, but I have to mention your mistake here. As Chunrei said, transparent walls appeared around him, faintly showing a crystal light. The residual power of the original cyan thunderbolt was immediately repelled. Raphael felt that the space in the spirit-gathering circle had changed. If the dozens of pillars he cast in the big circle were an unbreakable deadlock, then the transparent walls now were equivalent to a game in the deadlock, turning the absolute of the whole deadlock into relative. Since it was relative, then it could not be called a deadlock, but a broken deadlock. Raphael looked at the ball of crystal light that rose higher and higher, and finally formed the shape of a tower, and said in shock, "The Tower of Glory!" At this moment, he finally understood what the mistake was. It turned out that the owner of the Tower of Glory was not Ben Hong, but this Arthur. Raphael felt that he had experienced too much shock today, and he almost couldn't digest it. In fact, he did not know that on a certain day not long ago, another supreme angel, Michael, also had the same feeling. When the Tower of Glory appeared, an independent space immediately formed in the middle, and in this space, a light blue door of light appeared in Raphael's sight. Damn it! Raphael discerned that it was a teleportation door, and he roared loudly. His white pupils blazed while his black hair instantly turned white, and his strength instantly increased explosively. The restriction of wind and fire that alternated between green and red instantly started trembling as if it was being stretched bit by a shapeless and enormous force. After it surpassed its limits, it finally exploded into countless specks of light that dispersed into the surroundings. Raphael's figure was like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the space of the Tower of Glory. The pillars of the spirit-gathering circle had already disappeared, and a huge amount of power condensed on the silver staff in his hand, which he thrust directly at the crystal tower. This attack had almost condensed the power of the entire spirit-gathering circle. Because of the existence of a spatial artifact like the Tower of Glory, the surrounding space had become meaningless. The only way was to destroy the defense of the Tower of Glory with all his strength, and then capture and kill that detestable mouse before it escaped into the spatial door. This was not the first time that Raphael had faced the Tower of Glory. Back then, Saint Dragon Rodriguez had defected with the original light fragment, and Raphael had personally chased after him. Although he had severely injured Rodriguez, he had ultimately used the Tower of Glory to escape. Raphael was very clear about the power of this artifact, so he had immediately used all the power of the spirit-gathering circle to launch an all-out attack, wanting to break this spatial barrier, defense of the Tower of Glory, and capture and kill Arthur. The silver light struck the crystal tower like a bolt of lightning. Boom! As the ground trembled, large cracks appeared on the crystal tower, and the gaps seemed to shatter into pieces. However, there was no trace of Arthur inside, and only a faint sentence reached Raphael's ears. If you have enough patience, Snow Dowlet may become a bargaining chip for some kind of deal between us in the future. Raphael rushed towards the blue light door that had yet to disappear with all his strength, but in the end, he actually passed through it. Unwilling to give up, he continued to use several methods in succession, trying to capture or interfere with the space, but to no avail. In the end, he could only watch the light door slowly fade from his sight. The long staff in Raphael's hand was already trembling slightly because he had clenched it too tightly, and the haze in his white eyes was almost solidified. He finally understood Michael's anger and unwillingness at the beginning. The silver long staff suddenly slammed onto the ground, and the spirit-gathering circle immediately collapsed. As the earth shook and the mountains shook, even the people who were protected by the boundary in the distance were blown away by this huge force. When the trembling subsided, everyone was shocked to find that the entire ascending cloud plateau that was protected by the boundary and formation had been reduced to nothingness under this angry blow, and Raphael's figure had already disappeared. Chapter 1039. In the evening, the purple moonlight shone in the courtyard. It looked exceptionally tranquil. In the void, a blue door of light opened, and a resplendent purple figure appeared in the courtyard. The light gate gradually disappeared, and the purple color of the figure faded away. Looking at the familiar scenery around him, his heart, which was tense because of the battle just now, immediately became calm and peaceful. Because this was his home. Not only this courtyard, but also the entire Dark Moon estate. The original, Arthur, could be regarded as a wish. Whether it was consciousness or soul, it had been completely integrated. As the new Arthur, his feelings and affairs in the human world had basically come to a successful end. Rambus chose her own path. Veronica was freed from the abyss. Rex the Great got the gift that belonged to his son. His sister, Faye, had the freedom to choose her future marriage. Samuel became a true follower. Of course, the human world still had many ties that could not be severed, such as the deep friendship with the two Grand Masters of elves and dwarves, the promise to the Fire Elemental King, and so on. It was impossible to ignore it. But now, Tiffany had been brought back, and the biggest hidden danger, Ben Hong, had been fundamentally resolved. So, he could finally go home with peace of mind. Not far from the star point, Chinray heard a strange, gulp-gulp sound. It turned out that a black shadow was pouring wine in the corner. When he looked closely, it turned out to be a translucent onion. Dodo? Who is calling me? Master Slime had two long ears that were sharper than elves on his onion head. His nose also became pointed. He shouted drunkenly. His attitude seemed to be very arrogant. As the saying goes, one takes on the color of one's company. Since he had close contact with the two guys, Paglio and Lomont, the slime had long been accustomed to calling himself a master. Even in the magic game, the three guys were named Master Handsome Dragon, Master Handsome Saber, and Master Handsome Bug respectively. They formed the infamous Master Team in Endless Warrior Online. They usually liked to PK and snatch treasures to attract hatred. It was said to increase the player's fighting spirit and increase the competition in the game. If this was a scam, free-to-play game, then the three of them would be good at being the actors. Shenrei walked forward speechlessly. Do I need to call you Master Dodo? Master! With the help of the moonlight, the drunken slime finally saw the person clearly. He immediately put away his pointed ears and nose. As he was about to say something, he suddenly felt sad. He made 6 hands and hugged Shinrei's leg and cried loudly. This was not the usual fake crying of the onion, but a real sobbing. Shinrei's trousers were instantly soaked with tears. He didn't understand what happened for a while. What's wrong, Dodo? The slime raised his head and took out several golden cards with tears in his eyes. He choked and couldn't speak. Shinrei finally understood that these cards were the free gold cards of the Princess Villa and the gift cards of the Princess Retail Store. At that time, in the main altar battle of the Lord of Fear, Sasbak, facing the main altar with the strong defense of the Earth Origin Fragment, the slime was afraid to move forward. Rala threw out a trump card, which was these gift cards. As a result, the foodie and money grubber rushed to the main altar desperately, swallowed the Earth Origin Fragment in one bite, and became the biggest contributor to destroying the main altar of fear. However, the slime didn't know that he was deceived by his black-bellied mistress. He tried his best to exceed his level, but what he got was an expired prize and a paid gift card. He went to receive the prize and spend with his head held high. As a result, he naturally crawled back with his head lowered. As the saying goes, a good bug doesn't cry easily, but it's not sad yet. The slime, who had been drowning his sorrows in alcohol for the past few days, couldn't help but cry sadly when he saw his master. Chinray knew that Dodo was originally addicted to food. Now that he had been hanging out with Piglio for a long time, he had another trait of treating money as his life. This matter was indeed Rala who tricked Dodo. Although the slime's cowardice almost caused the whole battle to fail, he had made a great contribution after all. So, Chinray couldn't really discourage this guy. He immediately said, "Well, I'll take you to the princess retail store to pick 3 gifts that will in a few days. Then, we'll go to the princess villa to eat the most expensive meal." Dodo's wailing voice stopped abruptly. He lowered his head and slowly stretched out a round palm, forming 4 fingers. After thinking about it, he took out a few more fingers. Seeing more and more fingers, the veins on Chinray's forehead couldn't help but bulge. "If you continue to be long-winded, I'll reduce it to 2 gifts. 3. Master is really handsome." After a small interlude, Chinray learned from Dodo that Piglio had a faint sign of breaking through since the explosion at the main altar last time. During this time, he tried to break through to the peak of the kingdom several times, but he never succeeded. He chose to train behind closed doors a few days ago. Due to Athena's pregnancy, both Delia and Crobolus moved into the Lord's mansion to take care of Athena with the red dragon and Gloria. Lomad replaced Delia in the capital. With the assistance of his second wife, Medalu, he was in charge of the intelligence department of the fallen angel empire. The house was temporarily guarded by Dodo. He heard that the little princess, Alice, also came to the Dark Moon from the capital to visit Athena today. The slime, who had regained the reward after losing it, was inexplicably excited. After Chinray entered the house, he could still hear the exaggerated laughter of the really handsome sir behind him. When Chinray entered the room of the house, there were already 2 more people next to him, Isabella and Rala. In the previous battle at the Holy Mountain, the 2 women used the war projection skill while fusing with the star god statue. Although the projection was destroyed, the real body was not in danger. Now that they had successfully escaped from the Holy Mountain and returned to the demon realm, they could naturally get out of the fusion state. "Your home?" Rala looked around, and the light in her eyes reflected from her glasses. "Home is still the most comfortable." Isabella lay on the bed without any demeanor. Her whole body seemed to be relaxed. "That war projection, how do you feel?" Chinray was more concerned about whether there were any corresponding sequelae after the 2 of them used the war projection to fight with all their might. "There's nothing else." Rala thought about it carefully. "It's just some mental exhaustion. It's not a big problem. If I sleep, I should be able to fully recover. That star god statue is mysterious. If we have time, we should study it carefully." Chinray was relieved and nodded. "Well, our holy son His Holiness has returned to the demon realm and changed back to Royal Highness Prince Consort." Isabella's lazy look revealed a kind of seductive charm. "So, that Miss Tiffany should be successfully rescued?" Chinray smiled slightly. A crystal light appeared in his hand and landed beside Isabella. There was suddenly one more person on the bed. It was Tiffany. Tiffany's eyes were closed, and her face was pale. She was in a coma. Although Chinray reversed the ancient runes of the spirit-gathering circle and returned all the sucking power to Tiffany, as the energy core of the spirit-gathering circle, Tiffany's vitality and soul power were quite huge. In Raphael's original plan, the 100% conversion ritual would completely drain her vitality. It could be said that she would die for sure. Fortunately, Chinray took action and pulled her back from the line of death. However, Tiffany's most injured part was not her body or power, but her soul. Eudora used Eliza's steal and bestow talents to transfer Tiffany's power to herself. She resolved the backfire of the lightning heart that had troubled her for many years and broke through to the kingdom level. Then, she offered her daughter with light and dark physique to Raphael to become a sacrifice for the spirit-gathering circle. Tiffany had gone through untold hardships to obtain freedom and come to the human world. Especially when she obtained the origin of destruction in the mysterious place, it could be said that she had narrowly escaped death in order to find her mother, to find motherly love. However, this mother, for the sake of power and power, personally pushed her into hell, completely crushing her greatest and perhaps only pursuit in life. One could imagine the damage caused to Tiffany's heart. Although Tiffany was successfully rescued this time, it was probably not easy to make her cheer up and even agree to Raisin to take over the bloody empire and achieve a true, unified alliance of the demon realm. Madame Ant inevitably looked at Tiffany. This is the daughter of her biggest enemy, but there is no doubt that she is also an innocent victim. Let her rest here for a while first. Isabella sighed softly. Chenrei understood Isabella's mood and gently held her hand. Let's go. It's late now. Since we are home, let's all go and have a good sleep. Chenrei held the two women with one hand. Samuel and the others. Isabella thought of something and asked. They are still integrated in the Grand Master's inheritance world star sealing platform. Since it is the first time they come into contact with the power of faith, the longer this time, the better it is. Chenrei shrugged. Don't worry, they will only come out after 3 days. They won't disturb us at a critical time. Who wants to have a good time with you? Isabella snorted lightly. I will sleep with Rala tonight. You should go find Athena and the others. No, just stay here with your future Her Majesty Empress. As a good sister, Rala naturally nodded in agreement. By the way, Rala, about Athena's pregnancy last time, it seems that Kia has compiled a special booklet. Booklet? Ever since Chenrei told the news that Athena was pregnant, this had become the most sensitive topic. During these days of monopolizing, in the surface world, except for the inconvenient foundation after the arrival of Ben Hong, the two women had been having fun almost every night and discussing the mystery of making a human with someone. Now that they heard that there was such a thing as a strategy book, Miss Long and Madame Ant's ears pricked up at the same time. They almost snatched the booklet that appeared in Chenrei's hand. After flipping through a few pages, the two sisters looked at each other and saw the burning fighting spirit and flames in each other's eyes. I can't guarantee the effectiveness of this booklet. This note was undoubtedly superfluous. A minute later, Boss Chen was hurriedly escorted out of the door by two secretaries. Just as he was about to enter another room and carry out the important life event of secretaries doing things under the guidance of a certain secret book, a surprised cry came from the corridor. Brother! Alice? Why is she here? Before Alice's big jump arrived, a red light had already flown over first. Dad! It's Duo. Not only Alice and Duo, but there were also Athena, Kia, and others behind them. Hearing the voice of a slime constantly bragging, Chenrei finally understood why everyone came. He slightly hugged his baby daughter who kept rubbing his face, raised his neck that was hung by a koala bear lowly, and looked at Athena's smile and the little succubus's resentful eyes. Chenrei only felt warmth in his heart. Anyway, it's good to be home. Chapter 1040. What entered his eyes was a dazzling and boundless starry sky. Chenrei was floating in this vast universe. This was the universe that belonged to him. Super system. Destruction and creation were the two most basic laws of the universe. Although he had obtained the complete understanding of the origin of destruction and creation, it was only superficial. Chenrei closed his eyes and quietly felt everything around him. Every feeling was so wonderful, as if his state of mind and strength were constantly being refined in this astral travel. Looking back on the path he had taken before, the initial upgrade was actually just using the power that came with the super system to improve his physical strength and obtain the newly activated skills of the system. This improvement was actually just a kind of passive elevation. At that time, the super system was more like a wonderful tool for data conversion in his heart. From the initial, alcade, state to the current, evolution state of Purple Pole Emperor, he truly understood some of the mysteries of the super system. The previous data conversion system, including skills, was just an accumulation of the foundation. As the level increased, the concept of digitization and data conversion became more and more vague, but another feeling became clearer and clearer, which was life. From the initial chaos, then to the planet with life, then to the galaxy, star territory, the entire process was the reproduction of life in the universe. In his eyes, the current super system was no longer the boot screen of the previous game, but a universe that contained real life. This universe had endless mysteries. It was no longer limited or set by rules and regulations, but it was full of possibilities. In other words, there was no need to completely rely on the settings of the super system, but his own creation and understanding. Even as the master of the Galaxy Divinity Temple, he could only touch a little bit by relying on the understanding of the two basic laws of creation and destruction. Further understanding and discovery were needed. This would also become the source of continuous improvement and growth of the Purple Pole Emperor. In terms of skills, although this upgrade only added a mirror body, Chen-Rui could create 4 kinds of power that evolved from the art of war. This was the real qualitative change. The more he broke away from certain shackles, the more he could touch the real power. The battle with Raphael was a valuable experience for Chen-Rui. In all fairness, he was far from Raphael's opponent now. The reason why he continuously defeated Raphael in the Battle of the Holy Mountain of Light was mainly because he was prepared in advance and had the magical effect of artifact and skills. If he faced the enemy head-on again, he would be lucky to be able to escape successfully. However, Chen-Rui had just broken through the realm. He was still at a relatively early stage in the application and understanding of the various newly acquired powers, including the strongest Purple Pole Transformation. Taking the move, Nirvana Dimension, as an example, this ultimate move not only contained the power of light-splitting technique and red annihilation, but it also contained the power of space obtained from the Tower of Glory. It was an attempt to create a dimensional space, combining the two great laws of creation and destruction into one, using the powerful power produced by the collision of the two laws to destroy all enemies in the dimension. Previously, he was always a step away from using this move in his training and cultivation. He could not fully execute it until he faced a powerful opponent like Raphael. As if comprehending something, Chen-Rui had a thought and instantly returned to the Galaxy Divinity Temple's training ground. Just as he had practiced in his mind, after entering the Purple Pole Transformation state, he instantly split into 3 figures. Amidst the powerful purplish-red power, a triangular dimension was successfully constructed in the void. The triangular shadow spread out, and everything in the center was shattered. It took a long time for the space to return to its original state. Chen-Rui adjusted his breathing and quickly calmed his somewhat chaotic power. After this period of training, he could already use this new move more freely, and its power was getting stronger. What he needed to do now was to further familiarize himself with and understand the power of the Purple Pole Emperor. If he encountered Raphael again, it would be just as he had said, the next battle would be even more intense. He used all kinds of techniques and powers over and over again until he was completely exhausted. Rest, recover, then cultivate again. And so on and so forth. Although the most important thing at this level was comprehension, hard training and diligence were still the foundation. He could not be complacent or slack off. After completing a self-set training goal with a special time rule, Chen-Rui walked out of the training ground and saw a moving figure appear at the entrance of the Galaxy Divinity Temple. Chen-Rui. Veronica walked over. Veronica. Chen-Rui nodded. I haven't seen you lately. How are you? You really want to see me? Aren't you afraid that your wives will be jealous? Seeing the slight embarrassment on Chen-Rui's face, Veronica smiled sweetly and changed the topic. My experience during this period of time is so wonderful that it's almost indescribable. I entered a new world with the identity of an oracle and observed the various things in that world. I used my own happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy to feel, to integrate, to change, and I gained quite a lot. I feel that my previous experience was just like the legendary pain a phoenix suffered before its nirvana. Now my life has truly begun. Thank you. Veronica's eyes were gentle and clear. Chenrei could feel what it contained. The feeling of looking up at the sun in the abyss had not changed until now. It had just sublimated into another emotion, a kind of love. Not just brother and sister, not just a partner. He could not tell what it was exactly at the moment. He just felt that the love could encompass everything. Veronica, you don't need to apologize or explain. I don't want to repeat what you said to me. Veronica shook her head. You just need to know that I'm living a good and fulfilling life here. That's all. Chenrei usually thought that he was good with words, but now he could not find anything to say. He just nodded silently. All right, Your Majesty. Veronica showed a gentle smile. As your oracle, I have something to report to Your Majesty. This title is vulgar enough. Can I understand it as your prank on me? Chenrei shook his head, and the atmosphere finally relaxed. If you are sure to accept this prank, Veronica smiled and said. However, this title is also well-deserved because the two god queens under you, well, Rala and Inni have built the star god statue. However, according to the understanding of the function of oracle, they still need a faith fusion ritual to truly become a god recognized by the Tower of Faith. This will not only bring great benefits to the universe, but it will also bring them great benefits. Fusion ritual? Chenrei was deep in thought. The function option of star enhancement appeared in his mind. The original 1-star enhancement had become an optional 2-star enhancement. The super system upgrade this time came with the skill of mirror body, but the original buildings or functions had been enhanced. Due to time constraints, Chenrei had not had time to study them one by one. The previous 1-star enhancement used star power and faith power to cleanse one's body and make the strengthened person's foundation more solid. It would also become easier to break through the bottleneck in the future, just like the super version of the devil fruit. In addition, the halo effect of mutual enhancement was also mutual enhancement. The same two people who received enhancement, including the strengthened main body, Chenrei, would have a significant increase in each other's strength within a certain distance. The more people there were, the stronger the increase. This point had been well tested in battles. For example, Rala could always exert extraordinary power by Chenrei's side. The role of 2-star enhancement should be what Veronica said, which was to fuse with the faith of the super system, thereby becoming the god recognized by the Tower of Faith and further mastering the mystery of the star god statue on the star ceiling platform. The price of 1-star enhancement was 100,000 faith crystals, while the price of 2-star enhancement was 10 cubic meters of faith crystals. Cubic was a new unit of measurement for faith crystals. 1 cubic was equivalent to 100 million faith crystals, so 10 cubic meters was 1 billion, which was 10,000 times the price of 1-star enhancement. This price increase was really terrifying, but the law of the super system was generally that the higher the value, the more powerful the function. Moreover, the current source of faith for Chenrei was not only the universe of the super system itself, but also the magic game team that was getting larger and larger. It could be considered as both internal and external. Never mind 10 cubic meters, even 10,000 cubic meters was not a problem. Understood, I will complete this fusion ritual as soon as possible. Okay, Your Majesty God King. Veronica waved her hand casually and walked straight to the Tower of Faith. I'm going to continue my wonderful journey. Take care of yourself and Rala and the others. The distant figure gradually blurred in Chenrei's sight. When his vision became clear, he saw the bright morning light coming through the window. Training in the training ground now would no longer have the sequelae of excessive fatigue like before. He needed to sleep for a whole day, but he was a little hungry. Chenrei got up from the bed and gently pushed open the window. Immediately, there was a loud noise. In the courtyard, music with a strong sense of rhythm sounded. Several graceful figures were performing all kinds of gentle and moving dance moves to the music, forming a beautiful scenery. This was a special program provided by Catherine in the Shadow Empire and carefully adapted by the little succubus. It was said that this ancient music and dance originated from the Asmodeus royal family. It could make the fetus grow healthier. This was also the first prenatal education in the demon realm. He didn't know where Kia got the news that this ancient dance also had the effect of praying for children, but the girls still believed it. Therefore, there was this kind of dance every morning and evening. The little succubus led the dance. Rala, Isabella, and Crobolus were loyal followers. The others who were busy like Athena and Delia actually insisted on participating. This reminded Shinrei of the square aerobics in his previous life. What was even more shameful was that he heard that the palace of the fallen angel capital would also play this kind of music every morning and evening. Wait a minute! Whether it's the praying for children dance or the placenta dance, why is Alice joining in the fun? She even brought Duo. Cold sweat suddenly broke out on the forehead of a certain dad. By the way, what is that wriggling strange thing? Dodo? Shinrei patted his forehead speechlessly. Then he saw a figure sitting on the ground in a daze under the shadow of the courtyard house. The noise and laughter beside her couldn't attract her attention at all, as if she was in another world. So lonely. Chapter 1041. Daddy! When Shinrei appeared in the yard, little Duo was the first to fly up. Duo wants to eat blueberry milkshake, pearl mantu, white banana cake, red chestnut porridge, and assorted pudding today. This series of recipes made a twisting slime salivate. Shinrei smiled and put his face against his daughter's smooth little face. Okay, no problem. Daddy will make it for you right away. Shinrei quickly took out a series of tools and ingredients from the storage warehouse and prepared breakfast at the speed of a super powerhouse. His attitude was almost as serious as a battle. At this moment, he could finally understand how his father-in-law, Augustus, felt when facing the black dragon chick. Whether it was a demigod or a false god, in front of his daughter, he was an uncle type of dad. For his daughter's heartfelt smile, everything was worth it. However, the world was big and full of strange things. There were very few parents who were exceptions, or could not be called parents at all. Shinrei turned his head to look at the figure sitting in the shadow in the corner, and sighed. Brother, I will make pudding with you. Shinrei's appearance made Alice no longer in the mood to dance. She wriggled and stuck to this side. After all, this was not a breast dance that could make one a big-breasted alien. Only Athena and the others were still dancing seriously, and were not distracted. Seeing Shinrei's gaze fixed on Tiffany in the corner, Alice went forward with dissatisfaction and whispered, Brother, this Tiffany is so annoying. I talked to her several times, but she ignored me. Shinrei shook his head and did not explain. Alice's intention was actually good, and she was not the first person to run into a wall with Tiffany. In the past few days, everyone who tried to get in touch with Tiffany failed without exception, including Shinrei himself. For some wounds, sympathy would not only not heal the wound, but it would also make the wound deeper. Moreover, Tiffany's current state was equivalent to completely sealing off her entire body. Even the best medicine could not pass through that layer of shell that rejected everything and touched the wound for treatment. Unless she could walk out of the shadow. The dance was finally over, and breakfast was almost ready with Shinrei's demigod speed. Everyone surrounded him, laughing and laughing. Shinrei, who was the guest chef just now, immediately turned into a cheerleader and attentively handed towels and water. Curious lowly princess, Athena, what's on your plate? Big brother is so biased. Why don't I have one? Athena with a face full of happiness. Alice, actually that is... Smiling at Alice, that's something we're all envious of. It's a nutritious breakfast specially prepared by your brother for Athena. Lowly princess who joined the envious crowd. Oh. Smiling at Kia, if you want to eat it, you have to work harder tonight. High fighting spirit succubus. I understand. Struggle. Struggle. Right, it's Rala tonight, right? Should we change? Miss Long playing dumb fairy, what? Delia, who was quite speechless. Hey! You big-mouthed women, pay attention. Alice and Duo are still here. Lowly Princess, who was playing dumb like Teacher Fairy Dragon, it's okay. Don't I understand? You guys continue. Little Duo, who really didn't understand. Dad, I want one more of this white banana cake. Emerald Miss Long, who had always been focused on food, chewing sound. Really handsome uncle, who had always been focused on food, chewing sound. This time, Chunrei officially brought Samuel and his wife back to the demon realm. When they learned about the identity and glorious deeds of this prince in the demon realm, Samuel and his family were shocked. The husband of the empress of the 2 empires of the demon realm. Oh right, he will be the husband of the 3rd empress, and the 3 empires are about to become an alliance. In other words, the demon realm will be unified. The establishment of the alliance was planned by a certain royal highness from beginning to end. As the only husband of the 3 empires' empress, Arthur, no, it should be called Royal Highness Chunrei, is actually equivalent to the behind-the-scenes controller of the entire demon realm. How can a prince or emperor of an empire in the human world compare with this identity? As for the legends of those battles and martial arts conventions, it is even more exciting. Samuel had now moved into the Dark Moon's Lord's mansion and began to gradually take over the military affairs of the Dark Moon estate. Joanna and Ina also exerted their respective talents. Joanna was responsible for the economy and internal affairs, while Ina took over the public security work. She also planned to set up a mercenary guild in the Dark Moon. These 3 people were Chunrei's confidants who had a spiritual link. Their loyalty was unquestionable. Although their positions would have a certain impact on the original power structure of the Dark Moon, once it was fixed, Athena could worry a lot less in the future. For now, after the 3 people joined, Athena and Kia were much more relaxed. As for some turbulence within the Dark Moon, Chunrei was not worried at all. Athena, who was in control of the military and political power, had basically achieved complete control of the Dark Moon. The small fry couldn't make any waves at all, not to mention he still had absolute power. By the way, how are you feeling these days? After being reminded by Veronica, Chunrei added 2 stars of star enhancement to Athena and others. 2 stars of enhancement was different from 1 stars of enhancement. 1 stars of enhancement was limited to 1 month. First, the strength would regress, then it would slowly recover. It was like a cleansing and rebuilding of the foundation. On the other hand, 2 stars of enhancement directly gave a seed of faith to the other party. There was no time limit. The effect of star enhancement depended on the individual's understanding. In other words, if some people didn't have enough understanding, even if they received 2 stars of enhancement, it would be difficult to be effective. Leader, I don't feel anything special recently. It's completely different from the previous enhancement. Delia shook her head. Maybe my aptitude is poor. I don't feel anything special either. Kia had tears in her eyes and looked pitiful. But, Chunrei, I really want to be the Star Queen. Star Queen and this are 2 different things, okay? Isabella exposed the little succubus attempt. After the promotion, the Star Ceiling platform added the new Star Queen position, but there were only 3. Regardless of strength, this title alone had attracted the competition of the harem women. The original rarest, Star Concubine, quota had been increased to 7. Unfortunately, the rarer something was, the more valuable it was, so it was ignored. The little succubus trick was exposed, but she wasn't angry. Instead, she handed over Isabella's favorite lily porridge. Madame Ant drank her porridge the least, so she naturally didn't say anything. I feel, it seems to be a very comfortable taste, but I can't tell exactly, Athena said honestly. Rala said, I was just about to tell you about this. Recently, my soul seems to have some problems. There are faint signs of splitting. I don't know if it's an illusion. I feel the opposite of Rala. I feel that the power of my soul seems to be expanded infinitely, And I dream every night. Isabella smiled and glanced at Alice, who was eavesdropping. She blinked mischievously. As for what the dream is, let's not talk about it. Vixen, why are you being so mysterious? Isn't it just a dream of kissing my brother? The lowly princess whispered. If it's that kind of dream, I have it too, the little succubus added with a smile. Everyone's feelings were different. Chunrui couldn't judge for a while, especially Rala still had the signs of soul splitting. However, there should be no side effects of star-class enhancement. He had to observe for a while before deciding what would happen. Soon, the sumptuous and lively breakfast party ended. Athena, Kia and Delia returned to the Lord's mansion. Rala returned to the Rainbow Valley to study her soul problem. Isabella and Crobolus took Duo to the street. Dodo, who earned extra money, accompanied them as a packer. Alice initially wanted to stay secretly with Chunrui alone. However, when a vixen, accidentally, mentioned that the store also sold magical shoes that could increase one's height, the lowly princess, who had always been worried about her height and chest size, finally chose to go shopping after a fierce ideological struggle. In the entire house, only Chunrui and Tiffany, who had been hiding in the shadows, were left. When Chunrui and others were eating breakfast, Tiffany also had the same breakfast in front of her. Similarly, she was also eating, but her movements and expression were very mechanical. It was the same no matter what she ate. These days, no matter who talked to her, even if it was Isabella's sarcasm, she always had a blank face. Tiffany was indeed alive, but her soul had died in the Holy Mountain and in the spirit-gathering circle. Let alone the Emperor of the Bloody Empire, even ordinary people couldn't compare with her like this. Chunrui walked slowly to Tiffany. He didn't try to persuade or enlighten her, but he made a decision. Do you feel that life is full of despair? Do you feel that life has lost its purpose and meaning? Do you want to die? Tiffany still sat numbly as usual. If you have the awareness of death, then, come with me. When these words sounded, Tiffany's body finally trembled. Although her heart isolated everything from the outside world, she couldn't isolate the voice in her memory, let alone erase these words. It was the third time. The first time was in that mysterious place. As a competitor for the silver box, this man had gone through a lot of hardships and finally succeeded in obtaining the box. Just when she thought that her value had been exhausted and she was about to face death, this man unexpectedly said those 4 words to her. Then he took her away from that place of death and gave her the silver box in exchange for freedom. No matter what his purpose was, this was the first time she felt warm. The second time was in the Holy Mountain of Light. At the most desperate time, this man walked to her in front of all the enemies, and then that warm power flowed into her heart that was already cold to the point of extinction. Although she didn't know what happened after losing consciousness, she knew very well what kind of terrifying enemies there were. Now that she could appear here safely, it could be imagined what kind of battle had happened. Looking at the hand that was handed over, Tiffany's vision became a little blurred. She raised her hand tremblingly. The voice rang out again. You have to consider this carefully, because holding my hand is equivalent to holding death. Death? Tiffany calmed down instead. She didn't know where the strength came from, but she held that hand tightly. Sure enough, it was just like the warmth in her memory. The moment she held that hand, she felt an incredible power wrapped around her. Her soul began to fluctuate as if it was going to break out of her body. Had he grasped death? Tiffany didn't resist. Even if she died in this warmth, it was better than dying hopelessly and alone in that kind of cold nightmare. Her soul drifted under the guidance of that power, and her consciousness gradually blurred.